We're living in a world where we suffer, and we have all kinds of problems. And let us feel free to speculate as to what would be the most delightful interpretation of all these problems that we could possibly invent. In other words, what I'm saying is this. Here we are, threatened with the annihilation of the human race, not only through atomic bombs, but through overpopulation, lack of proper soil conservation, everything you can imagine, everything my friend Aldous Huxley can think up as a terrible threat to the future of the race. We're confronted with this very, very seriously. And supposing, for the sake of argument, that the very worst is going to happen, we're all going to be annihilated, and the human race has no future, and everything is as black as it can possibly be. Let's take this as a point of departure. Then ask the question, if that is true, in other words, if the worst that could happen is going to happen, is there anything that would make up for it? Not necessarily, I'm not asking whether there really is anything that would make up with it. But supposing we could think up something that might, how would we think? Now, it's not entirely trivial and silly to ask such a question, because very many important discoveries that emerge in the arts and the sciences are the result of people playing quite freely with fantasies. In other words, not so long ago at MIT, one of the professors proposed to his students that they should invent a kind of being which had, say, 3 fingers instead of 5, or could only act with its nose, which had wings and claws and no fingers or something. He invented all kinds of strange organic creatures and then said, how would you construct machines and furniture and knives and forks and all ordinary everyday appliances for these creatures? And as a result of this pure fantasy, several important discoveries emerged. And so in the same way, what I want to do is to suggest the possibility of inventing a cosmology, not as a work of philosophy, but as a work of art. The intention of it is, let me repeat this, could we think up something, an explanation of human life and of the universe, which would justify all the problems, all the agonies from which we suffer, and make them seem infinitely worthwhile? Could we invent out of thin air an explanation of the universe that would do this? And let us essay this simply as a work of art, without asking at first whether it's true or anything of that kind. Now, first of all, let's say we've got to start from one firm premise. That is, we've got to accept the facts of life as they are. In other words, that this world is as beastly as it is. It includes concentration camps, hospitals with people being mercifully tortured, to stay alive with incurable cancer. And all these things, you see, it includes all that. It includes the most ghastly, horrible things that actually happen. Now, what I want to suggest, first of all, is could I invent, out of sheer imagination, a justification for a world of this kind? So I could say, however terribly I suffer, and what is still more difficult, however terribly the people I love suffer, there might be a theory of the world which would make it all more than worthwhile. There might be some sort of understanding to which I could come, and then in retrospect look back on all the things I had gone through, all the terrors and all the horrors, and say, I'm very happy about the whole thing. It all worked out. It is worthwhile. It is wonderful. What would such an explanation have to be? So let's think it out. First of all, I think the first thing we would all agree about is that if the terrible things that can happen to us in life are in some way or other to be justified, we would like to feel that we ourselves were responsible for them. By that I mean, we'd like to feel that we're not simply the puppets of somebody else. We're not suffering because somebody else has been cruel to us. I think we'd all like to feel that if we suffer, we ourselves are responsible for it. Because the idea of a universe in which somebody else tortures you seems to me more repugnant to our basic emotions than one in which we feel that whatever happens to us happens at our own desire. Of course, this is very difficult to imagine when we are confronted with babies dying of cancer or syphilis. And we would say, how could they possibly be responsible for what's happening to them? So let us suppose, don't we have to think this way, that if these two qualifications are to be fulfilled, on the one hand, that I am responsible for everything which happens to me, and on the other hand, that the worst things that can happen have a justification which make them infinitely worth going through and experiencing, then we would have to say, wouldn't we, that in a way, all the frightening, terrifying things which a human being can undergo are in a way a dream. You see, I'm trying to find out what would make it tolerable. And what would make it tolerable is the feeling that somehow, sometime, we could wake up from it. We can all endure nightmares because we can awake from a nightmare. and suddenly find out what a relief, it was only a dream after all. And then really we feel rather happy about it. You see, just think of this for a moment, that if you could switch on any dream you liked every night when you went to sleep, and you could control it, and you could exploit all the possibilities of fantasy and imagination in thinking what you would like to dream, you would eventually get bored with being so well controlled and with being so happy. And you would eventually have to, you would want to have some dreams which you didn't control, where you'd be surprised, where you would have adventures where you didn't know the outcome. It's curious, isn't it? We thrill ourselves all the time by going to plays and movies and reading novels where there is terrible suspense. And although we know that it's all going to come out all right in the end, we pretend for a while, sitting in the theater, that it isn't, that we don't know what the issue will be, and how we enjoy that. Do you see how we put ourselves for a while, even though we jolly well know that the author has planned all this to work out all right, that we allow ourselves for a while the illusion of thinking that it might not come out all right. And herein lies the thrill. Now, supposing in the same way our whole life was something of this kind, that its anxieties, its tragedies, were the same kind of suspense and thrill that exists in a novel, and that we are undergoing it. What this would mean, wouldn't it, would be that we have within us a kind of higher self who is pretending to be the ordinary, everyday person that we are, who is acting it. That we are, in other words, that our everyday life is a dream from which we have the possibility of waking up. So let's, for the moment, simply assume this, not as a philosophical or metaphysical truth, but simply as an idea of pure fantasy. Supposing we are all dreaming our everyday life, and that there's a possibility of waking up from it. Now, let's go on to explore what kind of a dream this would be. You would first of all want to feel unfrustrated. In other words, you would want to feel that all your movements, all your desires could move in any direction without encountering a block. And what we mean by the sense of being physically frustrated, of the spirit being bound by the hard confines of matter, is the sense of being blocked, the sense of heaviness, the sense of bodily weight. When we're terribly tired, we feel the drag of our physical weight overwhelming us. And therefore what we want to feel is lack of obstruction in any direction that we move. So ideally, we would like to feel a world which didn't resist our will at all, where the wish, the flight of imagination was instantly fulfilled. But when you think about that for a while, you realize that's not exactly what you would want. Because after a while, being able to accomplish everything wouldn't challenge you, would offer no adventure. And therefore, to make the creation of a fantasy worth doing, you would like something that you would have to overcome in the course of doing it. You would like some intractable material, something that presented a little difficulty in shaping. And so, I think we would all ask, and we would go out of our way to produce situations where we were confronted with difficulty. Supposing, for example, you find yourself or you imagine yourself in a situation where you can control everything. And you know always, therefore, exactly what is going to happen next. This would not, would it, be a pleasurable situation for very long? It would be boring. And after a while, you would want to get into a situation also where you were not in control, where things would occur to surprise you. But you might want to raise this qualification that I will let things surprise me as long as I can stand it. When I can't stand it, I'd like to be in control again. Now here is the nub of the whole problem of creating a universe as you would wish it to be. You would say, I would like to be surprised. I would like to be out of control up to a point. But I would always like to be able to call a halt and say, now I take over again. I'm in charge. But you see, the moment you think this, you would like to add to this problem of being out of control. You see, it would be all too easy if you could suffer and know any minute you press the button, you would recover. Think of this. Supposing you had a paradise button. Any time you press this, you could be in bliss. And so you'd start daring yourself. How far could you go out into all kinds of adventures and situations beyond your control and not press the paradise button? You remember as kids, on a hot summer day, when you were terribly thirsty, how good an ice cream soda would be. And you had just 10 cents that would buy it. But you put it off, and you got thirstier and thirstier and thirstier, because how grand it would be to be maximum thirsty and then have the ice cream soda. You see? And it's just like that. So we have the paradise button that we could push. I'm still talking in terms of my purely invented, fantastic cosmology, or universal order, scheme of things. And we could press it any time. Now, wouldn't it be fun to add to this a new dimension that we'd forgotten where the button is. We've lost it. We don't know, and we're in, you see, scaring ourselves in a new way. First of all, we voluntarily let ourselves get out of control of the situation. Then to add to this, we forget that we are really in control and that we can press the paradise button. This is a new way of scaring yourself, a new thrill. We seem in this predicament to have lost contact altogether with the place from which we started. But this will only make sense, this will only answer the problem that I posed in the beginning. That is to say, the problem of what kind of cosmology could I imagine that would justify all possible sufferings? If we can wake up. We may have made it as difficult as possible to wake up. But nevertheless, there always remains a point at which we can wake up and recover from the nightmare. Now, many of you will already see quite easily that the kind of cosmology which I've been describing is nothing very new. This is, after all, Hindu philosophy. The idea that every thing, every being, every person in the world is Brahma playing the part, playing, acting that he is all these things. The Godhead is masked, acting a drama in every single one of us, but forgets for the time being that he is the Godhead. This is Vedanta. And also you know well that not only in India, but all over the world, there occurs to people from time to time a kind of experience that we call cosmic consciousness, or whatever it may be, in which they suddenly see that this is so. They suddenly see that this entire problematic world, with its horrors and evils and tortures, is a play. That it is simply, as it were, life playing hide and seek with itself, frightening itself, scaring itself, screaming at itself, accusing itself, making itself feel guilty. Let me read a description of this sort of experience. There are dozens of these things throughout ancient and modern times, people who suddenly had this happen to them. This is the description given by a very famous man, Richard Buck, who wrote a book called Cosmic Consciousness. Now listen. All at once, without warning of any kind, I found myself wrapped in a flame-colored cloud. For an instant, I thought of fire, an immense conflagration, somewhere close by in that great city. The next, I knew that the fire was within myself. Directly afterward, there came upon me a sense of exaltation, of immense joyousness, accompanied or immediately followed by an intellectual illumination impossible to describe. Among other things, I did not merely come to believe, but I saw that the universe is not composed of dead matter, but is, on the contrary, a living presence. I became conscious in myself of eternal life. It was not a conviction that I would have eternal life, but a consciousness that I possessed eternal life then. I saw that all men are immortal, that the cosmic order is such that without any peradventure all things work together for the good of each and all, that the foundation principle of the world, of all the worlds, is what we call love, and that the happiness of each and all is, in the long run, absolutely certain. The vision lasted a few seconds and was gone. But the memory of it and the sense of the reality of what it taught has remained during the quarter of a century which has since elapsed. So you see that the version of the world which I could construct or imagine out of fantasy is also very akin to things which people have experienced. And you could call these experiences hallucinations, wishful thinking, anything you like. It, at the moment, doesn't matter. Let's suppose that that's the way things are. In other words, that we are in charge, that there is, as it were, an inner self, an inner experiencer within us all, which is really in charge of things, which is the basic reality which nothing can overwhelm or destroy, but which is, as it were, amusing itself by forgetting that it's in charge, by embarking on adventures and becoming subject to the feeling of not being in control. And however far it ventures into being out of control, the basic fact remains in the back of the whole thing that it is in control and that nothing can possibly happen to you which is not your own will. And we must add to this, to make our fantasy complete, that one day you'll wake up. Now, don't you think that on those terms, if that were the truth, you could face life with equanimity?
Hey, y'all. Welcome. Make sure I'm unmuted. We're good. Isn't that interesting what Alan said when I was listening to that with you just now? He said that eventually in this theory, you would get to the place where you had had enough. And I think that most of the people that would put up with the things that I say have reached that place. And you're here to find a new way. And I'm happy to be here with you and discover this new way together. And that's really why I'm doing this Zen series, because I've learned the hard way that the world isn't as it seems, but at the same time, you want to have value. You want to have value in your life, and it's hard to find value in an illusion. And so the one who is ready to awaken says, enough of this. I want the real deal. And so there's an awakening that has to occur. A veil has to come down, and only the individual can pull that veil down by seeing through it. And so I thought Alan's words in this last 30 minutes were quite poignant in pointing into a similar, maybe even the same direction that we are sailing at this time. And I wanted to also take a moment to tell you guys how much I appreciate your encouraging words. I included in the video just now a number of letters that I received this last week, and you guys have been very kind and complimentary to me, and I just wanted to say thank you. Genuinely, I just wanted to tell you thank you. And we had a great Zoom meeting yesterday. And what's been really interesting, I really thought when I started the Zoom, I really thought that there would be a tremendous amount of questions about the material that I cover. But what's been so interesting is that most of the time in the Zooms, we're talking about health. We're talking a little bit about the KM. We're talking about personal growth. And there hasn't been a whole lot of questions about Zen. And what that has told me is I think that you guys have a pretty good grasp of where I'm pointing at this time. And you are walking right along with me. You're not confused, because I know that if people were confused, I'd be getting more questions. And like what happened yesterday during Zoom, I had a gentleman come forward. I'm thinking about using this as part of the intro next week. But a really nice guy come forward, and he was a full-blown, committed Rosicrucian, even suggested when he was answering that he was still under oath and that there were some questions he couldn't answer. And what was really interesting is that he said that the work that I did in Rosicrucianism, he actually learned more through my series than he did actually attending the Rosicrucian order, which I thought was absolutely crazy. But it was encouraging too, because it showed that what I'm doing is clarifying, because this is complicated information. And so I've been thrilled. I've been thrilled that the Zoom hasn't been filled with people that are just so confused about what I'm talking about, because it really has helped me understand that the path I've taken, the way I've gone, seems to really work with y'all. So fantastic. Let's go over to comments and let's see what everybody's saying right now. And then we'll get started with the night. Hi, King. Hello, Fortune. Love you too, love. Thank you for being there. Thank you, Fortune, for being at Zoom yesterday. Hi, Catlin Kiss. Yeah. Hi, Max. I hope you were able to make the, Max, I hope you were able to make the Zoom. If you weren't, that's okay. You're not, and this is something I wanted to say to you guys, if you're not on the Zoom list, or if you are on the Zoom list, that doesn't mean you have to go to the Zoom. That just means that the option is available to you. But there's no obligation. In fact, I bet a lot of people that I send the Zoom invite to each week don't go, and they just are happy to be a part of the list, and they're just waiting for the opportunity to be able to go. I've had a number of European folks who have said that it doesn't work for their time zone, and they hope to someday be able to make it. And so that's really why it's there. It's not an obligation. It's not a requirement. So if you want to be on the list, I'm happy to put you on it, and understand I'm not going to have any expectations. And if you want to leave, just let me know you want to leave, and I'll be happy to take you off the list. It's no problem. No questions asked. And I actually did receive some letters this week from folks who wanted to be added to the list, and they were saying that they really felt badly that they weren't able to go. And I was like, it's okay. You're not offending anyone by not being there. It's there for you. It's a gift. The Zoom meeting is a gift. And if you want to participate in it, great. And if you don't, that's fine. There's no obligation. So I just wanted you guys to know that it's really relaxed and kick back in the Zoom, and we just have kind of a family powwow and talk. And we had some good questions and some good interrelations this or yesterday actually, and it went really well. I was very happy with it. Happy with the progress. Continuing here in our comments. Hey, 9mm, welcome. I remember you yesterday. Thanks for being here. Hi, Sophia. I'm glad that you liked it. I'm thinking that you're the same Sophia that I talked to yesterday. And I'm actually thinking about including that, what you had to say, which I think was great, in next week's intro for Zen. Hi, Jays. Thanks for being here. I'm happy to shine the light. I'm happy to do it. What a great question. Hi, Barbara. We are in the design phase right now. Right now, the seamstress, who is actually a part of our chat, she's right now putting together the initial hoodie, and she's going to send that to me, and I'm going to make sure it's of the quality and essence that I want, and to make sure that it's worthy to be put out into the public. It's worth your time. It's worth your money. So that's where that's at. The t-shirts are a little bit different because they're not as specialized as the embroidery stuff, and they're not nearly as expensive. So the demand for the t-shirts is going to be a lot higher. So what we're looking into right now is drop shipping from different companies that will be able to take my design and translate that to the clothing and then ship it straight to you. It also saves in cost, saves you guys money, saves me money. And it allows all different sizes. I would have to stock all of that clothing here at my house, which not only I can't afford to be sitting around in my house, but secondly, I don't got the space. And so by drop shipping, we're able to get the swag right out to you straight from the company under designs that I personally approve. So we are in that process right now. Just finished the digitizing of the design. She's getting all of it embroidered. We're getting the clothing in. We're shopping organic clothes, all of the t-shirts, all of the hoodies, everything. In fact, even since last week, everything we now can get in 100% organic. We're still working on that for the yoga pants, but those are going to likely be bamboo. But the clothing, the t-shirts, the hoodie and stuff, that's all going to be 100% organic cotton. And so we're doing the hard thing up front so that it's a super high quality, awesome product that is completely above board at every level. And the colors are right, the design is right, the fabric is right, and it's healthy for you. It's not going to be sucking energy out of you being made out of a bunch of plastic. So that's where swag's at. And we're also going to have caps and all that. We're designing a website. When I say we, it's me and Stacy. We're working on a website, and we're going to get that all up. We're hoping in the next few weeks so that we can get this stuff out to you guys before Christmas. That's my goal. If it doesn't make Christmas, it doesn't make Christmas. But we'll see what happens. That's my goal. The designs are cool, and I'm definitely going to have a God Eaters t-shirt also. So, yeah, really looking forward to that. Hey, Scooter. Thanks for being here. Hey, Steady Eddie. Hi, Biker Chick. Hi, Kenneth. Nice. Outstanding. Hi, Fortune. Said hello to you a minute ago. Hi, Survive and Thrive. Welcome back. All good. Hi, Gretchen. Yeah, man. We got the old school folks here. Everybody's here. Hi, Pablo. Yeah. Yeah, thank you for no spoilers. Yeah, I did. I watched F1 today. I'm excited about the race tomorrow. Yeah. Love it. Absolutely love it. So yeah, it looks like we got everybody here. Does anybody have any questions or have anything for me before we get going here? I love you, Bob. It was great seeing you on Zoom yesterday. Yeah, might be. This world's a toughie. This world's a toughie. What was that quote from? Let's see. Kirk Hammett, the guitarist for Metallica. Birth is pain, life is pain, death is pain. It's all the same. That kind of stuff just cracks me up. I love it. I'm trying, I promise. Hey, thank you so much. Love to hear it. It's going to be some cool cat stuff, man. I don't know how many of you saw it. I saved a few photos from last week. Here's the yoga pants. They are freaking awesome. And then, yeah, some of the t-shirt hoodie ideas we've got. And I'm not sure I included. Yeah, here's going to be the main hoodie. It's going to say Nature Creature on it. I'm naming the line Nature Creature, which I thought was awesome. But I'm naming the line Nature Creature because that's what we are. And I'm just so excited. Okay, let's finish up comments and we're going to start on some Zen. We're right on time, 5:15. We're looking good. Okay. That's above my pay grade. I'd love to look it up, though. I'll check it out for sure. Definitely. But that's above my pay grade. I am unless those are terms for things that I already know, but they're under a different term that I don't know. Any questions? Here's a good question. How does Zen roll over into a part of Confucianism? Now, Confucianism, today we're going to be studying Taoism and Zen, but Confucianism is a more rigorous Eastern philosophy. It's more structurized. It's more commanding oriented. And as you know, with Zen, what we are looking for is fostering, not commanding, but fostering an individual into seeing past the veil. And Zen is very much like Buddhism in that there's no self in Zen. And this is one of the things we're going to talk about with the Tao. The Taoism, you're to identify with the Tao. Okay. And in Zen, there's no identifying principle. Okay. And so there's, in other words, there's no self. The way to free oneself from anxiety is total, complete release from the ideas that go along with the self, the baggage that goes along with the self. And what is beautiful about Alan Watts's book, The Way of Zen, is that Alan has very delicately added some subtle language and energy to the idea of Zen by integrating some additional values of Taoism. And we're going to be talking about today, because there is a pretty grand difference between, believe it or not, between Zen and Taoism. Taoism is actually 1,000 years younger, or excuse me, 1,000 years older than Zen. Zen comes out of about the 5th century CE, 6th century CE, and Taoism is from about the 5th century BCE. So about 1,000 or so years difference. It's so similar. What's really interesting is it has real similar structure, meaning time parallels to Western religion. Because if you think about it, really you're starting to start organizing Western religion about 500 BC with Rome. And then you have the Roman Empire, known as the Catholic Church. They formalized Christianity in 325 AD, right? And then you have the formalization of Zen coming out of Taoism and Mahayana Buddhism right around the 5th century. Just a couple hundred years later, you're walking right into the timeline of when Zen started to surface, which is just right there similar with Christianity. And as you know, the quote from Ram Dass, we're all simply walking each other home. And so isn't it interesting that the parallels of this developing Eastern country or existence that has nothing to do with what is happening in the West until the trade routes open, right? It's still on a similar developmental structure. It's those kinds of miracles and those kinds of wonderments that let me know, at least, that what we're experiencing isn't happenstance hodgepodge. It's definitely oriented to organics and chance in one way or another. Okay, that falls into just like some people have more luck than others. But what's really going on, there's an organization to it, and you can see the patterns. And as you guys know, truth is found in the patterns. If you begin to open your eyes wide enough, you can see the patterns. And it renders to you that you're on basically a magic carpet ride. that the carpet is carrying us in one sense or another, meaning the Tao, meaning the ether. But in another sense, you're guiding it. Like the kayaker, he's being carried by the rapids, but he's kind of orienting himself in the rapid base with his oar. So he's in the flow, but he also has some say in the direction. And the trick is with Zen Taoism is to notice that you're in a stream, you're in a flow, and anxiety comes in your life when you fight the flow. When you live in denial and you live on the idea that, no, I'm not in a kayak joining some flow. I am, I'm in charge, right? Or God's in charge. He's a boss. And I'm on the right team, thinking the right thoughts, this kind of a thing. And that hinders, it frustrates the natural flow of nature because nature doesn't fit in a structure. It doesn't fit in a design. Right? And so if we're to flow with nature, it's a bad idea to structurize yourself too much because you're going to alienate yourself from the flow. And so Zen And in some ways, Taoism, but not completely. And Zen comes along and says, you know what? You're your own trouble, friend. You're your own trouble. You're trying to make nature, the stream, the world, your life, something that it's not. And this is the idea that Joe Campbell talked about, where you stumble, there lies your treasure. You see, and it's when you stumble, it's in the, you realize, wait a minute, what am I doing? That's when you realize the treasure, because you're no longer in control. You stumbled. And this is what Zen is pointing to: intention without intention. To be the compassionate, the loving one without the intention of wanting, trying to be the compassionate one, the loving one, because that's not authentic. That's not authentic love. Being commanded to love and trying to love your neighbor, trying to love your enemy. You see, you are the creator of your own frustration. And as long as you keep trying, as long as you keep doing as told and obeying, you see, you are out of the flow. You're going against the flow. And so Zen is the discipline of trying without trying, doing without doing, simply the act without acting. You see, because that's where the heart is, because the heart isn't in mind. The heart and mind are not congruent. The mind is oriented to material reality. The heart is oriented to vertical, spiritual, non-reality. You see? And so amalgamating these things is what we're trying to do here in Zen. Okay, we're about to get started as I warm you guys up here. Yeah. I don't see any question. Yeah, it is an illusion. You're exactly right. Look, you're exactly right, Chip. It is an illusion. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Chip. Thank you for these additives. Love it. Yes, being. That's the key. Thanks, Chip. Great additions tonight. Okay. Yeah, the mind is physical. The heart is transcendental. Yeah. I don't even know if I'd call it heavenly, because it's even past the idea of heaven. It's transcendent. Okay. All right, well, let's get started on the lecture. Let's get right into Zen here. I know that's why you guys are here. So let's get busy. First of all, I'm sorry if any of the dates that you saw earlier said November 22nd. Some of the ads I run, I had forgotten to change the date. My fault, 100%. So I apologize. It is the 29th. Today is the 6th week of Zen. And we're about to get rolling. Now, again, what we're going to be starting here is we're going to be looking at what is the difference between Taoism and Zen. Zen and Taoism are both ancient Eastern philosophies with some overlapping themes like simplicity, harmony, non-attachment, but they stem from different origins, emphasize distinct practices, and pursue somewhat different goals. I'm going to cough here. Hang on. Thank you. Okay. Like Zen's no identity, this is what I just mentioned, they have somewhat different goals. Like Zen's no identity alongside Taoism's identity with the course of nature. I'm going to explain that here. While Zen was influenced by Taoism during its development in China, adopting some naturalistic elements, they remain distinct traditions. And this is what I really want you guys to know right on the front end. Zen and Taoism are very much related, but they have very distinct differences. It would be the kind of difference, the kind of difference that would be between the person who, say, is the agnostic, someone who understands or has a sense or faith that there is a God, but God cannot be cognized, so there isn't a God. In other words, God can't be cognized. Now, this person has a reverence for that whole idea of ultimate reality. It's just they're on a level whereby they say, you know what, you can't put a name on that. You can't isolate and contain that. So they're an agnostic. They're not a they're not an atheist, but they're atheistic in a sense, but they're not atheist in that they simply understand that God can't be cognized. So it's not that there, quote unquote, isn't a God. It's that whatever it is can't be cognized. And then you have, and both these, and the agnostics are going to be, you know, they're going to be a nice person. Doesn't make them a mean person or anything because they have this different idea of God. And then you could have, say, the highly religious person who has named God, put God in a form, and has identified through Jesus and all this kind of stuff. So they're also recognizing God, Jesus, this kind of thing, forms. But you see, they're very, very different. You see, they're both recognizing in some sense, one way or another, God, but they're going about it in basically opposite positions. You see, and this is similar to Taoism and Zen. With Taoism, I am identifying with the flow, with nature, identifying myself as a nature creature, and I am in the flow, the stream of consciousness. Okay, that's Taoism, very nature oriented. Whereas with Zen, okay, there's no self. There's no, ultimately, there's no, nothing that could be put inside the Tao because there's no self. There's no identity principle there. There's nothing to identify with. The whole idea is release. This is where you get into the Buddhism stuff. So you're not, in Zen formally, you're not identifying with nature. You're identifying with no self. The Tao is identifying with nature, identifying with the course and way of nature. You see, Zen isn't doing that. And so this is where you need to understand Watts, Alan. He is commingling these things. He's integrating a lot of Taoism into Zen, which it already has. Zen has a lot of Taoism in it. But he's doing it in a subtle way so that differentiation between identifying with and no identity is kind of getting a little bit muddy intentionally. In other words, opening up both to the individual, because some people are going to better identify who they are, what life is, all that kind of stuff through an image, namely Tao, okay, or through no image, namely Zen, namely Buddhism. There's no form there. Okay? So this is a distinct difference. And if you look here, look at their principal symbolism. Now, on the left, we have the principal symbolism of Taoism, which is integrating the hexagrams of the I Ching. You see the black and white fish in the middle, the yin yang, and then the solid and broken lines are out of the I Ching hexagrams. And we're going to get into that later. I'm not going to talk about that now. And then you see you have over here, looking at Taoism, look at the straight lines. You see, look at the finite form. And then the two fish, you see it? You see how there's that line there? And the finite form of the circle with the two identical fish. And then you have the structure right there of the I Ching, which is reflected within Taoism, understanding the overmind. That would be the I Ching. We'll get into that. And then look there on the right, the Enso. This is the symbol for Buddhism. And this here, look how freehand it is. You see, this is Zen. Look how the circle is all done at once. When the person drew that circle, it was paintbrush on the paper and then whoosh, no touch. Right? And whereas you look at the symbol in Taoism, I mean, that takes time. Straight lines, structure, organization. It's beautiful. Right? But it's a different kind of thing. This is how you can better understand the differences between Taoism and Zen. And here we have with Zen, look how the circle is broken apart in some portions. It's not solid, right? Whereas with Taoism, you have a solid black, solid white. There's no gray except for the, between the fishes. Whereas you have much more here in this Zen. You have much more gray area. Much more chance. Just how exactly is the ink going to rub onto the paper? And there's no concern about that. Okay. And then this is the openness of Zen. This is the attraction to Zen. In other words, most anyone can draw that little quick circle. It's going to be a lot harder to draw all of this other stuff on the left. You see? And you can notice that these are identifying principles within the symbolism of Taoism. You have all this structure. You have chance represented. You have the two fish. There's a lot going on there. Whereas with the symbol for Zen, it's much simpler. Okay? You're not concerning yourself with identifying with different prospects or aspects of nature. You're releasing everything. You're letting that go. It's an act of release. It's an act of letting go. And this is why it instantly cures anxiety, because you're not holding to life. Okay, so continuing here. Taoism is an ingenious Chinese philosophy and religion dating back to around the 4th to 6th century BCE, primarily based on texts like the Tao Te Ching, attributed to Lao Tzu, who was one of the originators of Taoism, and Zhuangzi, a foundational text in Taoism, and it was also a person. We'll get to that. Taoism developed independently of Buddhism and includes many philosophical branches. Taoism revolves around the Tao, an ineffable natural force, course, or way that underlies the universe. That's that stream of self-organizing. It promotes living in alignment with this flow through concepts like Wu Wei, non-action or effortless action, intention without intention, yin-yang balance, and spontaneity. Zhidran, of its own, of itself, so. In other words, nature develops spontaneously of itself, so. There's no boss. There's no hard structure. It's a spontaneous becoming that never started and that will never end. In other words, the start and stop are not comprehensible. They don't fit into dualism. They don't fit into time. It's like saying, can God make a rock he can't lift? You're trying to define something in a finite sense with silly questions. And see, this is disingenuous to God and understanding such a thing. Okay? And so with Taoism, it's this same idea. Effortless becoming, effortless action, self-organizes. The goal is harmony with nature and the cosmos, and here it is, rather than transcending them. To identify, here it is, to identify in Taoism, not become. Not become. You are the Tao. There's nothing to become. You are an expression of the Tao. Your identity is nature. You are a nature creature. Okay? There's your identity. Nature, which can't be put into words, books, description. You'll never fully experience or exhaust it. That's your identity. Okay? Taoism. The course, the way, just the way of nature, just the exact same way you came out of your mother's womb, you came out of a spontaneous intercourse between your parents or whoever it was that impregnated your mom. Okay? And this is spontaneous. Your parents didn't know if mom was going to take. She didn't know if she was getting pregnant or not, whether they're trying or not. Spontaneity. So the whole underlying current of the individual in the Tao is this spontaneous becoming. And there's going to be a parallel I'm going to show you. Zen. Okay. Rather than transcending them, identify, not become, often with a more playful or paradoxical tone than Zen. And this is the idea, this is the whole playful idea that you always saw in Alan. That was in many ways Taoism. And he's playing along. This is enjoying the game, knowing full well it's an illusion, knowing full well it's a cognizing of your own imagination, but taking part in it with joy, compassion, and passion, right? You know it's an illusion, but you enjoy it. You fully engage. That you are nature becoming, so you're just fully engaged in the spontaneousness of nature, right? This is why it's so important to express your gifts. Okay. And that's playful. Now, Zen is a bit more formalized. You may not know that. It's not as loose around the edges as Taoism. You may find, as we study Zen here, that you identify with much more, in many ways, Taoism than Zen. That's often how I feel. Okay, but that's fine. They intermingle fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Zen is a school of Mahayana Buddhism that originated in India as dhyana meditation and evolved in China as Chan Buddhism around the 6th century CE, 1,000 years after Taoism. Did you know that? And was influenced by Taoist ideas. Okay, all good. It later spread to Japan as Zen in the 12th century, where it became, this is right in the Middle Ages, okay? Right in the Middle Ages, formalizing the discipline, where it became prominent. Just like there are denominations in Christianity that began to become more and more prominent, it's the same thing in the East. Zen is fundamentally Buddhist, focusing on the teachings of the Buddha. Zen centers on direct, here's the Zen, direct, experiential, get your hands dirty insight into one's true nature. And what is one's true nature in Buddhism? No self. Can't put anything on that. No form. You can't even say is. Okay? This is where they're coming from. And was influenced by Taoist ideas. It later spread to Japan in the 12th century, where it became prominent. Zen is fundamentally Buddhist, focusing on the teachings of the Buddha. Zen centers on direct experiential insight into one's true nature, often called Buddha nature, to achieve enlightenment, to become Tao. Okay? It rejects over-reliance on scriptures or intellectual analysis. Instead, emphasizing, here's the key, and that's why you know there's no identity in Zen. Instead, emphasizing no mind, mushin, impermanence, and release from the illusions of the self. So the Tao is saying, take part. Zen is saying, release yourself. Both. And considering this, wouldn't that be the most holistic understanding? Not one or the other, but both. Seeing yourself as both the manifestation of the Tao, and at the same time, my manifestation can't be put into words. No identity, no form, no separation. Yeah? So these two philosophies of embedding yourself into it and releasing yourself from it are the two that combine, that amalgamate in this book by Alan, which is why it's so insightful. Because I can identify, I can reach, meaning the book can reach the general public by not choosing, forcing one way or the other. Identity, no identity. Okay? What do we see in Christianity? You must identify through Jesus to God. And in a very similar way, and I think this is why many Christians like Taoism, the Tao is saying, or Taoism is saying, identifying with the Tao, the course, the pattern, the way of nature to identify God, to become. You see? And this is why Taoism is so tasty, tantalizing to the Christian who is leaving this idea of form, because Taoism is of this similar kind of idea. It's a form, but no form. See, Christianity takes you all the way and says that's a form. God is a form. Jesus is a form in time. Jesus lived and died, was created and died, went to heaven. Okay? A form, a physical being. Okay? And so the Christian who is leaving Christianity, when they leave Christianity, have always identified through Christ, oriented themselves through Christ. And when they leave Christianity, you leave that identity principle because you're abandoning the idea of needing a savior because you're not a sinner. Okay? And so the Christian especially feels empty, even more lack, because they have left the form, the idea, the mental picture, the Maya that has completely consumed their life. And so it's hard for the Christian to let go into this idea of no self, no form, no identity. It's too big of a leap. And so Zen comes in, or excuse me, the Tao comes in, Taoism comes in and says, listen, it's totally fine. Why not identify with nature, through nature, as though you are nature, a nature creature. Many people think of themselves when they are a Christian that they are Christ incarnate. Do you see how these parallel? Okay. But the thing with the Christian who believes that they are Christ incarnate, they believe they're Christ incarnate because they've been forgiven. You see, there's the catch. Condition. Taoism, there's no condition. There's nothing to forgive. It's simply walking into the space. There's no prayer you got to say. There's no belief you got to anchor down to. There's nothing to grab. It's identifying with the wonder. Then now you see it, now you don't. There's no form there. You see, these are very subtle psychological differences that are key to understanding the transition and moving out of the idea of form and into the idea of no form, wonder, and identifying with wonder, which there's no words, from leaving the idea of identifying through words. Finite. Yeah. This is going to help you understand not only the parallels of Zen and Taoism, but the great, great differences between them. Okay. Zen centers on direct experiential insight into one's true nature, the Buddha nature, to achieve enlightenment, to become Tao. It rejects over-reliance on scriptures or intellectual analyses, instead emphasizing no mind, impermanence, and release from illusions of the self. Non-duality is key, but it's framed within Buddhist concepts like the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. And you guys already know about that because we talked about that in the first 2 weeks of the study. Continuing, Taoism encompasses a wider range of practices, including meditation, breath work, physical exercise, Tai Chi, internal alchemy, we'll look at that in a minute, for longevity or immortality, Feng Shui, and rituals involving deities or talismans in its more religious forms. Taoism focuses more on contemplation and ethical living without, here it is again, without formal structures, because you can't put nature into structure. It seeks immortality, health, and balance in this life, often through adapting to change rather than resisting it. That's really key. It has a more relativistic, nature-centric view, sometimes incorporating mysticism or shamanism. Now, what do they mean by internal alchemy? Niandan, or internal alchemy, is an array of esoteric doctrines and physical, mental, and spiritual practices that the Taoist initiates to use to prolong life and create an immortal spiritual body that will survive after death, also known as Jindan. Inner alchemy combines theories derived from external alchemy, correlative cosmology, and the emblems of, can't read it, and medical theory with techniques of Taoist meditation, Daoyin gymnastics, and sexual hygiene. In other words, working on the impossible to name self to move into the space of transcendence. And there's an internal, you guys know what I'm talking about when I say there's an internal dialogue that you're having. When you're contemplating a subject, when you're walking into something new and unknown, there's an internal dialogue, internal alchemy that is taking place in the body. And it's changing. Think about it. All your brain neurology is coming out of your gut. So when you're changing your attitude towards this undercurrent, you literally are physically changing your biology, epigenetics. You're changing your DNA by changing your attitude, by changing your perspective. In other words, you're engaging in internal alchemy. Okay? That's the Tao. Zen primarily involves meditation, zazen or seated meditation, as the core practice, along with koans, like the farmer and the fox, riddles or paradoxical statements to provoke insight. Mindfulness in daily activities and teacher-student dialogues, zazen or dokusan, are key in Zen. Rituals are minimalistic, and enlightenment is seen as sudden and direct, not planned. Can't be sudden and spontaneous if it's planned. Zen aims for liberation from suffering through awakening to the emptiness of all phenomena, sunyata. It has a more ascetic, disciplined tone. That's that Confucianism someone was asking about earlier, than Taoism, and integrates smoothly into monastery life or arts like the tea ceremony or gardening, bonsai, or martial arts. Okay? Very, very subtle differences, but important to know to fully understand and grasp. Okay? Next slide. Now, I made a little graph here so that you guys could see the differences in aspect, the founder and key figures, key texts, view of reality, approach to life, and influences. And I listed out here on the left, which is Taoism, and then there on the right, which is Zen. And interestingly, there you see the 1,000-year difference between the two of their origins. And Taoism is a Chinese philosophy. It is not, what this is really interesting. It's not Japanese. Zen has the really strong Japanese influence, but actually Taoism is Chinese. Okay? And Zen is mostly Buddhism inspired with Japanese philosophy influence and refinement. Just like the Japanese tea ceremony is saturated in Zen, right? Because the Japanese could identify extremely well with this idea of Zen and Taoism, kind of combining these two philosophies of self and no self to begin to have a better grasp of who oneself is, who you are, what the world is. Because it's both, is it not? Is it not? It's both materialism, which is not God, but that's also is God, because materialism is God manifesting. Its identity is God. But it's a form, and God is outside of form. And God is outside of is, okay? So it's like that funny side that's so hard to come to terms with as a human being. And then the key founder in Taoism is Lao Tzu and Zhuangzi, which is, which is both an individual and the author of the book, which is the basis of Taoism. And then the Bodhidharma, the Chan founder influenced by the Buddha and Taoism, which is what brought us to Zen. Okay, and so we're going to continue here. The approach to life, flow with nature, direct insight via meditation, becoming the Tao. And in Taoism, it's becoming or being nature, realizing that you are nature and that there is no R or you're not any self-identity in Zen. And then finally, strong Japanese refinement from the 12th century on. And then in this influences for Taoism is Chinese culture, medicine, and arts. Just a little general picture so you can begin to see the differences. All right, continuing. On pages 13b through 28 of chapter 1, Alan delves deeper into Taoism as the foundational way of liberation that underpins Zen. See, work together. tracing its origins to Lao Tzu and the ancient I Ching. He explores the I Ching not as divination, and this is the right in the beginning I want you guys to know. Divination, in this sense, we're not talking about demonism. They're not talking about evil spirits, okay? Growing up in the Christian home, which I did, when you talk about divination, when that came up, it's like, oh my God, we're involving demons now. Satan is involved. No. Divination is spiritual insight. Look here. The practice of seeking knowledge of the future or the unknown by supernatural means, okay? And you guys understand this when you begin to identify as a nature creature, you begin to recognize your supernatural means because nature is full of the supernatural. In fact, it's the supernatural that undergirds all of nature. Okay, and so understanding that has nothing to do with demons or anything. It's simply recognizing that there is a supernatural power and means behind it all. And so the wise man would integrate, dive into, understand the supernatural, divination, as part and parcel to growing. Okay? Does that make sense? But as a tool, now divination is a tool for cultivating intuitive decision making, contrasting it with the Western rationalism and limitations, because as we know, the Western world is a reductionistic world. That's why the medicine industry is reductionistic in its sense. You keep dumbing it down to the simplest form and then go with that. That's reductionism. That's reductionism. It's like judging a book by its cover. It's like, well, I'm going to reduce everything. I'm just going to read the preface and look at the cover, and then that's going to determine whether or not it's a good book. You see, you've missed the point entirely. That is not how you determine if it's a good book. You're going to have to engage in divination. In other words, you got to go into the book and read it and imagine in your mind what it's saying. You're reaching into the supernatural aspects of it because you're seeing past the words. This is the appropriate approach, not only to books, but to nature, life, and living. And so reductionism and just reducing down to whether you like the book or not by reading the preface and the cover, you see you've dumbed it down. You don't know enough to make a decision. And this is why you never want to make a decision about your life, yourself, or any of that stuff underneath one book, one religion, because you've dumbed the whole thing down. You've reduced all of nature down to just that one belief system, that one book, that one understanding of yourself. And that's not a good idea when you are a wonder living in a wonder. You don't want to reduce yourself like that. Okay. Watts unfolds core Taoist concepts like Tao, the indefinable spontaneous process of reality, Wu Wei, non-action or effortless functioning, Zhijuan, spontaneity, Hassin, the integrated mind-heart, sounds like the Shin, and Te, natural, or De, that natural virtue or power. He critiques conventional knowledge, moralism, and artificial control, showing how Taoism fosters, remember how I said you get love, you foster love, you don't beat it out of somebody. Taoism fosters unself-conscious freedom, mirroring Zen's no self-awakening, planned guilt-driven theology via egocentric control. Sorry, I skipped a line. Let me try that again. Taoism fosters unself-conscious freedom, mirroring Zen's no self-awakening. Drawing parallels to Western pitfalls, Watts positions Taoism or Zen as a release, here's the key for all my Christian friends, as a release from Christianity's planned, see, there's no spontaneity there, planned, guilt-driven, is it not? You're a sinner till the day you die, theology via egocentric control. Because what does the Christian think? They got eternity secured. They got it under control. They're worshiping the right God. They got the now under control because they're worshiping the right God. They're asking the right God permission. They're seeking approval from the right God. They're expecting reproof from the right God. But they don't realize that's the mind of a slave, because a slave is always asking permission, seeking approval, and expecting reproof. You see? Very easy to see once you get very plain about things. Okay, this promotes trust in innate intelligence for mature, accident-like creativity. Isn't that brilliant? Accident-like creativity. What greater thing on the planet is discovering something accidentally through your creativity? I mean, that is brilliant. That liberates from dogmatic rigidity. You see, when you are lying down with dogmatic rigidity, you can't flow. You can't change with the current. You're stuck. You're stuck. There's no flow. You're trying to memorize and lock down the right beliefs, right? The right God, the right morals, the right surroundings, right? Or you're trying to lock and secure that in, because the Christian is obsessed with control. That's why there's so much anxiety there, because they are setting themselves up for an anxious life, because they have all these expectations. I mean, if I'm a Christian, I got the future. I got it secured, man. I got it secured. I'm in the will of God. I got that secured, man. I am right in God's will. I'm asking God every day what to do. You see, they don't realize they're living in an egregore. And so Taoism, Zen, is coming along here and saying, friend, the idea isn't to force the world into your cognizance, into what you've been told. The idea isn't to reduce it to that. The idea is to simply integrate into it as it is. It doesn't need to be fixed. It doesn't need you to save it. Nature doesn't need you. Okay, you are a part of it. You are part and parcel to the whole thing. And your participation is your choice. Nature will get the job done with or without you. You want to participate in it? Awesome. You're going to have a great time. You want to not participate in it? Fine. You'll live in resistance and your life will be frustrated. And nature won't care, because nature's going to do its thing, whether or not you want to or not. Doesn't matter. Okay, so it's up to you. It's your choice. It's available to you. And if you don't do it, fine. You get the lesser experience of the person who spends their life running, avoiding, escaping. You see, you want to be integrating, amalgamating, coalescing, joining, uniting. You see, you're a nature creature, and humans identify through those principles, identifying, uniting, oneness, because that's the underlying current. Okay, and this Taoism, Zen is simply coming along and trying to help you see this. Okay, pages 13 to 28 break into 8 thematic sections, incorporating direct quotes to ground the elucidation. These ideas model liberation from Western religion by dissolving, here we go, dissolving abstract gods, moral compulsions, and intellectual grasping, right? What is the Christian doing all the time? Taoism, Zen, invites direct, spontaneous engagement with life, freeing the mind from sin narratives, hierarchical divinity, and forced, aka inauthentic, virtue towards an effortless, whole being harmony. Doesn't that sound like something you would want to be a part of as a human being? Doesn't that sound like something you would want to be a part of? Something that is free of sin narratives, something that is free of hierarchy and all these different levels, right? And forced virtue, commanding to love God, being commanded, threatened to love God, commanded to love your neighbors. You may as well be saying the beatings will continue until morale improves. The beatings will continue until you love your neighbor. The beatings will continue until you worship and believe in the right God. You see, that's a dead end philosophy. But yet that's exactly what the 10 Commandments are saying. Do this or die. The beatings will continue until morale improves. Orthodoxy. And you're not in tune to that. You're a nature creature. You are aligned to the flow, the self-organizing, natural, non-driven, spontaneous life. That's your true self. And this is why it has been such a crime that all of these KM institutions have given us all of these enterprises that go directly against identifying with wonder and directly towards grasping to orthodoxy, the rules, the authority. Moor yourself to this. You see? It's a beatdown. It's a beatdown. And that's why the world has gotten so dysfunctional. We bought into the beatdowns. Okay, this is the same. Yeah, it's the same. Here we go. Next slide. Watts, Lao Tzu and the I Ching, origins of Taoism. Now, this is what we're going to be looking at here real quick, is the origin of Taoism. Now, Watts, according to tradition, just like on page 13 on your right, the originator of Taoism, Lao Tzu, was an older contemporary of King Futsu, or Confucius, who died in 479 BC. Lao Tzu is said to have been the author of the Tao Te Ching, a short book of aphorisms setting forth the principles of the Tao and its power or virtue. But traditional Chinese philosophy ascribes both Taoism and Confucianism to a still earlier source, to a work which lies at the very foundation of Chinese thought and culture. That's the key there, the foundation of Chinese thought and culture, dating anywhere from 3000 to 1200 BC. This is the I Ching, or Book of Changes. And as you guys know, like we talked about last week, the Chinese work through pictures. They don't work through letters. The Chinese language is a picture orientation, not a letter orientation, you see. And so this comes out, this comes out of the idea of the I Ching, who was giving, let's see if I got it here. Where did you go? Here. The I Ching, where you will have examples. This is skipping ahead, I'll go back. But here's the kind of thing it will say. Hidden dragon, do not act. Flying dragon in the heavens, it furthers one to see the great man. Arrogant dragon will have a cause to repent. You see, this is coming out of the I Ching. And so it's this very odd way of speaking to the individual in this dreamlike setting, this dreamlike, symbolistically oriented setting. Pictures. Pictures. What does reading this do to your mind? Hidden dragon, do not act. Flying dragon in the heavens, it furthers one to see the great man. You're picturing things in your head. You're not trying to understand this verbally. You're trying to picture it in your head. And then you get the translation right there. At the very beginning of an endeavor, one's potential is great, but still latent. Like a dragon hidden in deep water, it is not the right time for action. One must wait patiently until the situation is ripe. And you see, you got to have a translator here to understand what the dream in the book is saying. But remember, all dreams can be translated in nearly infinite ways. In other words, it's offering you an opinion of the situation, an opinion of the dream. And what they're saying here is this I Ching here that has all these hexagrams, and look how similar that is to tarot. What it is doing, it is pointing to these different energies in the universe, just like the tarot is pointing to those energies with tarot cards. And the hexagrams in the I Ching are pictures like Rorschach blots. And when you combine these pictures together, it's like combining the inks to form a blot. And there are interpreters, oracles, who can look at the blot, who can look at the yarrow sticks, and they can make sense of them. In the same way the psychotic patient can look at the ink blot and can tell you what goes through their mind. The psychiatrist can say, okay, this blot with those kind of words coming out of your head means this. And they're doing the same thing with the I Ching. They're throwing the dice, they're throwing the yarrow sticks, they're looking at the hexagrams, and they're translating it into a verse in some sense or another that gives you insight into the flow, the deeper principle that is flowing in your life. And because you threw the yarrow sticks, because you're the one who's putting energy into the discipline, it's going to render the undercurrent for you because you're putting your energy into it. And this whole idea of pictures, of word pictures, helping guide an individual comes out of Chinese thought, the I Ching. It's a divination tool. It's a tool that knows how to take the rational material world to help render the underlying current that is forming the material world. And this is what the ink blot, this is what the yarrow sticks, this is what the hexagrams are doing. And so you have an oracle, just like you have a psychiatrist. And this is a person who is trained in whatever discipline. So the psychiatrist is trained in counseling, in the metabology of the brain and how the brain actually functions, synaptic gaps and transmission, all that kind of stuff. Right? And then you have this I Ching, when you have an oracle rather than a psychiatrist. And the oracle is years of training of looking at the different yarrow sticks, the I Ching, and looking at these divination tools and practices to help someone understand their life. Same thing as the gypsy who is reading a tarot deck. They're taking these energies, these cards that this person has picked out of the deck. They put their energy into it. Unintentionally, but intentionally. And they lay the cards down. They have no idea what the cards are going to be. That's the unintention. But they intentionally laid out the cards. And then the oracle turns the cards over. And by looking at the cards, can tell that individual, well, these are the cards you picked. This is what the cards became. This is the picture that it's telling you. And this offers uncanny insight into that individual's flow. This is what the I Ching is doing. This is what the Tao is based on. That should give you gravity. And there are human beings that have been dabbling in this for thousands and thousands and thousands of years across multiple cultures. So to call it frivolous, to call it meh, chance, BS, right? That's a fool. Because the fool doesn't understand the millions of human hours that have been engaged in this discipline to shape and form and hone it so that it speaks more and more fluently to you as a member of the human race way down the line. In other words, it's a gift. Don't belittle it. Because you don't understand it doesn't mean it's stupid. And labeling it as demonism, demonology, is again an act of stupidity because you don't realize what you're talking about. This is an amazing book, just like the tarot deck is an amazing set of data that you can use to better understand this world that doesn't have a description. Okay? This is where Taoism is sourcing from, friend. Okay. We finished this. This is the I Ching, or the Book of Changes. Here are the hexagrams, an example, and you can see the similarity to tarot. You lay the cards out, you lay the hexagrams out, you throw the yarrow sticks, you throw whatever the bones, and this translates into a pattern. And that pattern is unique to you because you're the ones who threw the sticks. You're the ones who put your intention into it. Okay? This is Chinese philosophy. This is Chinese spirituality. This is a totally different world than the Orthodox Christian, the Orthodox Jew, the Orthodox Islamist grew up in. And this is why it's important to not be afraid and understand this incredible group of people went about the whole spiritual enterprise in an entirely different way. Entirely different way. Pictures, not words. Mythologies, images, not history. Looking and understanding oneself through direct identity and release. You see, these are philosophies and paths and ways that are completely unfamiliar to us here in the West. And this is why it's so valuable. Okay, continuing. Watts describes, the I Ching is ostensibly a book of divination. It consists of oracles based on 64 abstract figures, each of which is composed of 6 lines. The lines are of 2 kinds, divided negative and undivided positive. And the 6-line figures or hexagrams are believed to have been based on the various ways in which a tortoise shell will crack when heated. Again, the natural world. For many centuries now, the tortoise shell has fallen into disuse. And instead, the hexagram appropriate to the moment in which a question is asked of the oracle is determined by not the turtle shell, but random division of a set of 50 yarrow sticks. And here we see the back of a turtle. You can notice that the tortoise shell markings divide the 28-day per month, 13-month per year lunar calendar we find in Mayan, Cherokee, and Celtic civilizations. Okay? This is the Western world tying into this Eastern world in understanding the universe, nature, in a way that utilizes natural principles, nature elements, namely yarrow sticks and turtle shells. This is integrating nature's natural spontaneity in a basis to understand what nature is. You see? Okay, continuing. But an expert in the I Ching need not necessarily use tortoise shells or yarrow sticks. He can see a hexagram in anything. In the chance arrangement of a bowl of flowers. I mean, it's not true. In objects scattered upon a table. In the natural markings on a pebble. A modern psychologist will recognize in this something not unlike a Rorschach blot test, like we just talked about, in which the psychological condition of a patient is diagnosed from the spontaneous, there it is, spontaneous images which he sees in a complex ink blot. Do you see what's happening? Both cultures are using the same spontaneity to find understanding. Do you see the pattern? Pattern renders truth. Do you see? Truth transcends culture, transcends time. It keeps coming forward because it doesn't change. Truth is perfection. And it's simply aligning that to that perfection through these rituals and disciplines, which aligns you directly to the spontaneity. That is the Tao. That is the undercurrent of all things. This is why things are the way that they are in this. It should begin to make total sense. Not unlike a Rorschach blot test in which the psychological condition of a patient is diagnosed from the spontaneous images, aka words coming out of his mouth, which he sees in a complex ink blot. Everything's connected. Could the patient interpret his own projections upon the ink blot? He would have some useful information about himself for the guidance of his future conduct. In view of this, we cannot dismiss the divinatory art of the I Ching as mere superstition. Why? Because you're using the same exact technique that they're using in science today in the West. It's the same technique. Look, same technique, different costume. Okay, just a different way of costuming the exact same way of reading spontaneity. What is the tarot reader doing? Spontaneously reading cards that were spontaneously drawn by the individual. The whole thing is spontaneous. Even the interpretation is going to be what the mood is, the vibe, the sense, the knowledge, the history, the awareness of the gypsy who's translating these things. Okay? Brilliant. Do you see it? Do you see the pattern? See the pattern. Okay? Pattern. Watts introduces Taoism's roots in Lao Tzu's Tao Te Ching and the ancient I Ching, framing the latter as a supernatural knowledge system, which it is, the I Ching, based on hexagrams derived from natural patterns like tortoise cracks or yarrow stalks. This isn't superstition. It is an ancient method to tease intuitive insight. How do we tease intuitive insight? By engaging in rituals that are based in nature. Nature principles, nature objects, right? And this is seen right here. We see it's right in front of us in this example. It is an ancient message to tease intuitive insight akin to psychological projection tests, Rorschach tests, revealing the mind's subconscious patterns. We find truth in patterns. A bowl of flower petals and bones will depict a different picture for each observer. The experienced observer, the one who has an intuition and sensitivity, there's that word again, guys, that I've said so many times. We need to hone our sensitivity to the currents of the underworld, the energies, offers access to the unseeable undercurrent, so to observe where energy is headed. You see the wisdom in this. The I Ching, the basis for Taoism and Confucianism, influencers of Zen, correct, model a non-theistic oracle. So the I Ching, Taoism, and Confucianism model a non-theistic oracle, trusting randomness and intuition over divine revelation or scriptural authority. My friend, that is called pure, liquid, unadulterated heresy. Right there, heresy. Models non-theistic. You see, that's the unthinkable to the Christian. Non-theistic oracle. Trusting, there it is again, a Christian can't trust. Christian can't trust themselves, can't trust others. Y'all are sinners. But the oracle trusts randomness and intuition. Okay, trusting the gut mind. What do I tell you guys to do all the time? Trust your gut mind over divine revelation or scriptural authority. That's what right there. Taoism is saying, throw your theistic nonsense in the garbage. The way to understand nature and yourself is through trusting randomness and intuition over divine revelation or scriptural authority. Do you see? Do you see? The deeper you go, the harder it's going to be, my friend, if you're tied into and holding to religion. This frees decisions from a moralistic, dogma-saturated will of God to align with life's constantly fluid changes. You see? Because the will of God doesn't change. If it changed, it wouldn't be God. God is finite and set in the Christian mind. There is a plan, and that plan has been in place since before you were conceived. That's in the Christian mind. The I Ching, Taoism and Zen say nonsense. Nonsense. The way of understanding isn't through theology. The way of understanding is through experience. Experiencing, giving yourself, trusting life, and trusting the wonder. Because there's nothing to forgive, there's nothing to save. Totally different perspective. Totally. And exactly the prescription that the Western Christian needs to find understanding, because it's the antithesis. It's the out in the proportion of the in. It's the up in proportion of the down. In other words, these are two antithetical philosophies of life. To find understanding, one completely absorbs one side and completely absorbs another, and then finds themselves in the middle. In the middle. Not all one side, not all the other. In the middle, where you have some structure, you have some randomness, and these two things are the rapids that you ride. The materialism and spirituality that you guide and navigate in your brain, the stream of consciousness, in order to live an appropriate life. You're not going to find an appropriate life in extremes. You're going to find the appropriate life in the gray, because we're nature creatures, and nature is holism. It is both black and white, both. The wise man, the wise mind is in the center, which doesn't move. The black and white spin as fast as they want. The one who is understanding the world and understanding these things completely is unaffected by either, because they see the dualism. And so that world can spin as fast as it wants. They are unmoved in the sense of anxiety. and they are in the realm of ecstasy, right? No rejection, allowing that flow of nature to completely flow through you and out of you. There is no resistance to be found anywhere. Therefore, there's no anxiety. This is the larger concept that they're pointing at here. Okay, free from that moralistic, dogma-saturated will of God, so to align with life's constantly fluid changes. Okay, what time is it? It is 6:20. Let's go another 2 slides and I'll go to chat at 6:30. Watts critiques Western methods. Here we are right there, bottom right, page 14. Indeed, an exponent of the I Ching might give us quite a tough argument about the relative merits of our ways for making important decisions. We feel that we decide rationally because we base our decisions on collecting relevant data about the matter in hand. We do not depend upon such irrelevant trifles as the chance tossing of a coin or the patterns of tea leaves or cracks in a shell. Yet, he might ask whether we really know what information is relevant, since our plans are constantly upset by utterly unforeseen incidents. That's the spontaneity. He might ask how we know when we have collected enough information upon which to decide. I mean, who's to say? If we were rigorously scientific in collecting information for our decisions, it would take us so long to collect the data that the time needed for action would have passed long before the work had been completed. And this is that concept of holding the ball or being behind the ball. I am holding the ball when I am acting when I am non-acting, I'm moving from the space of inspiration. I am behind the ball when I am gathering data and then deciding. Remember, I talked about the racer. If the racer is gathering data and deciding, he's already at the corner apex. He's missed it. He should be moving through intuition, which there is no data assessments. It's fully the feel. There's no time to assess. He's operating from the feel of the very moment he is in. And he holds the ball. He's not in front of the ball when he's acting from that space. In other words, no mind, no thinking. This is what they're pointing to. This is what Alan is pointing to. It would take us so long to collect the data and time for action that the time would have passed long before the work had been completed. Do you see? So if we are to identify with nature, we don't align behind the ball through the mind. We become the nature. We become the mind, in other words. There is no try. You are simply acting from this place of, or non-acting from this place of action without action, intention without intention. Do you see? It's a flow. It's not a thought. It's a flow. And this is what he's pointing to here. And this is life. Life is everywhere, all the time, all at once, constantly. There's no time. Death is the hunter, meaning the end of your life is the hunter. There's no time for decisions. There's only time for action. Do you see? And this is that space that Zen is talking about. So you're completely unanxious about anything, but at the same time, fully in tune and aware with the moment. You see, being able to fully experience without any anxiety, being able to fully give yourself without any guarantees. This is the life of freedom. And this is to where Alan is pointing. Next slide. He continues. So how do we know when we have had enough? Does the information itself tell us that it is enough? On the contrary, we go through the motions of gathering the necessary information in a rational way. And then, just because of a hunch, or because we are tired of thinking about it, or because the time has come to decide, then we act. He would ask whether this is not depending just as much upon irrelevant trifles as if we had been casting the yarrow stalks themselves. And see, this is what Alan is saying. Alan is saying you're living life and you're learning and you're going through all this stuff, creating memories and all this good stuff. And then all of a sudden you come upon a decision. And 9 times out of 10, you have to make a gut decision because it's so sudden. It's like you suddenly come home and your house is caught on fire. You're not going to decide what to do. You're going to immediately act, getting the hose, trying to get the fire out. And if you can't get the fire out, immediately going in the house and saving what you can before it burns down. You're not deciding anything. You're just doing it because the moment is there. The moment of fire is there. And this is what happens throughout most of life. Is it not? Is it not? You are responding. Your attitude is determining what happens because life is throwing you spontaneous curveballs. And most of the time in life, you don't have time to decide. Like, you got to go now. And so you go with your gut. You go with your gut. Even if you've been contemplating it for days, you finally, when the decision has to be made, like, okay, my gut is telling me this, go with it. Do you see? Because there's no time to collect. Life is becoming and growing right now. It's like the rose that is budding. There's no time to wait. Take the photo now. It's budding. It's doing its thing. It's not going to look the same tomorrow. It didn't look the same yesterday. Do you see? The now. That's what counts. And then he concludes, and then we'll go to questions. In other words, the rigorously scientific method of predicting the future can be applied only in special cases where prompt action is not urgent, where the factors involved are largely mechanical, or in circumstances so restricted as to be trivial. By far, the greater part of our important decisions depend upon hunch, the gut mind. In other words, upon the peripheral vision of the mind, not the spotlight. That makes sense? The peripheral. What is the greater pattern that I'm seeing? That's always going to deliver you the better choice. If I'm too spotlight, I'm not going to see the forest for the trees. The wise mind is the one that is going to assess the whole situation, which is why it's never a good idea to lock yourself down in a view, especially of God or of nature, because these things are past lockdown. You see? And so the appropriate approach is this free, open-handed, open-minded idea, while at the same time utilizing all the experience, memories, and life lessons that it has taught you. And you just simply refine. And because growing never ends, this is just your engagement, man. It's your daily. That's the daily meditation, dude. That's the daily meditation. I meditate all the time, but my meditation isn't sitting down and removing everything out. It is going out into nature and contemplating the lessons I'm learning, contemplating the world I'm in, not deciding, contemplating the behavior of people around me, and considering what is nature, what is my life telling me. This is the meditation. Not trying to decide, contemplating, considering. Do you see? Certainly there's a place for emptying the mind. Certainly there's a place for hardcore Zen Buddhist meditation. I'm not saying it's irrelevant. I'm not. I'm saying that part of what is called meditation is the time it takes to consider, why am I here? Why has this happened? How have my decisions brought about my disgruntled, anxious position that I feel and I'm living in? Because I'm the one that's causing it. This is the deeper meditation. No blame. No blame. No looking for the will of God. Asking permission, seeking approval, expecting reproof. Stop that nonsense. Do you see? And this is exactly where it's pointing here. The peripheral vision, the wide-angle view. Thus, the reliability of our decisions rests ultimately upon our ability, here it is, to feel the situation just like the driver feels the road. She feels the situation upon the degree to which this peripheral vision, here's the key, has developed. In other words, how awake are you? How awakened are you? Think about it. When you were thinking 10 years ago, why is it that we keep going to war and it never ends? Why is it that they just keep increasing our taxes, but nothing improves in the world? Why is it that I'm giving all this money to Red Cross to help feed and house all these people in third world countries, and their world never changes despite the billions of dollars going there? If you sit and trust the Red Cross, you're going to stay confused. You have to back away, release, and get a wider and wider and wider and wider picture. This is how you can see the KM. This is how you can see not one single congressman is in your favor, cares an iota about you. The person who has the wide angle lens will understand what that congressman is telling me is a lie. Everything they tell me is a lie. What my doctor is telling me comes from the medical school of the Khazarian mafia. That's what my Western doctor is telling me. And the aware person knows this, so they make a wiser decision. And this is exactly what the Tao Zen is pointing towards. Conscious meditation. Being present and fully in the now. Aware of the lies. Aware of where I'm being cheated. Aware of where I am putting my energy and what is happening because of that. This builds the wise mind. This builds the wise mind. Developing your peripheral vision. Seeing past the spotlight view. Seeing past this. The open view. So that you will behave and act appropriately in accordance with the way the world is. Yeah? Questions. Now, which slide is this? This 18. So we are going to start on 19 when we come back from comments. Let's go to comments. Let's see what you guys are doing. Okay. So where are we at? Okay, we have someone who is abusing our chat room. So we're going to say bye-bye. Okay. Very good. Now, next, high verbal. Let's see. Do we have? There we go. I'm glad to hear that, Max. I am looking forward to the great changes that are coming because the Red Cross is actually a Khazarian mafia institution. So the fact that you may be getting your money is a sign that the times are a-changing, my friend, because if we were still underneath the KM, you would not get a single dime. Not a dime. Not a dime. Okay. We have some interesting individuals coming into our chat room. Let me see if I can help here. Interesting. Yeah. Interesting. Sorry, guys, that we've got kind of a freak here. Let me see what I can do. Yeah. I can help get rid of that nonsense pretty quickly. Okay, here's a good question. Let's go with it. Hi, Fortune. Chuck, what are your thoughts on total silent meditations? They're great. I love this series. Amazing presentation. I love you. I love you too, Fortune. Thank you. You're very kind, love. Okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with silent meditation. I was just simply suggesting that that's not the only kind of meditation. There's other kinds of meditation. And other kinds of meditation would be like every week I go multiple times out for a 3-mile run. And every single time I go on my run, I spend the entire run without any headphones on, without any music going through my mind or anything like that, just hearing my feet hitting the ground and the wind blowing by my face and seeing nature. I just simply contemplate the day, contemplate what's going on in my life, what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, what sense of it I can make. Not anxious, not trying to find answers, not trying to solve anything, but just simply contemplating, observing, right? And then there's another meditation, like you're mentioning here, where I sit still, where I am not focused on any one thing, but in actualness, I'm releasing everything from inside of my mind out. In other words, emptying the mind, and I guess you could say falling into or dreaming into the deeper sense, the deeper reality, which is a dream. And this is viable. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Clearing your mind, clearing out and removing the anxiousness, not thinking about any one subject, but just emptiness is form. Form is emptiness. That whole platform or heart sutra, that idea, there's nothing wrong with that. And it's fantastic. Hi, known by the heart. Would reading tea leaves be considered the same as I Ching or ink blots? Yes, absolutely. That would be exactly like reading the yarrow sticks. So yeah, absolutely. Reading bones, like you throw bones into a bowl and the oracle can read the shape, positioning of the bones, what each bone means or intuitively represents, right? This is all taking this random chance, unknown wonderment and trying to put it into a picture, an image, an idea that can help bring about understanding of the ununderstandable world. And so tossing dice, yarrow sticks, pulling cards, reading tea leaves, reading the palm of your hand, the lines in your, these are all pointing towards that spontaneous underworld that supports, invigorates, and loves all things. What's the quote? The Tao moves both to the left and to the right. It loves and nourishes all things, but does not lord it over them. It accomplishes merits and makes no claim to them. You see? You see? This is all pointing towards that idea. Okay. This is interesting. Okay. Well, that's not nice. That's not nice. Come on now. We can do better than that. We can do better than that. Okay. We'll put you in timeout for a little while. Okay. All right. Yes, Oxford believes we are apart from nature. Exactly. Any idea of separation, any idea of disconnection, right? That would be going against your individual identity because you are a nature creature. You are embedded in nature and you are from nature. You see, you are from nature. You come out of the natural world spontaneously, right? You came out of your mother's body, your father's body spontaneously in that moment of when they were together. Yes. Yeah. I completely agree. I completely agree. And it's fine. We're going to have haters. It's going to happen from time to time. It's okay. It's okay. People are going to do that. It's okay. Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's okay. It's okay. You're welcome. I'm glad to do it. There's nothing wrong with having a counter opinion, but calling people trash, I mean, come on, man. That obviously shows a lot more about your psychology, and you're projecting hate onto others just shows that you're a hateful person, you know? And the ones that are hating in the name of God or Jesus, again, you can see right there, there's real dysfunction there. Can someone be, well, babies are like that. There's no veil with the baby. The baby is completely pure. So there's no veil there. So that what the child is seeing is very different. And I mean, there are even psychologists that will tell you that what a child sees is very different. What a child sees is very different. All right. And it's different as an adult because as an adult, listen, you've been brainwashed with egregores. You've been told the world is a certain way. You've been told you're a certain way. And there's a whole situation whereby you've got all of this baggage that you take on and carry on as you get older. But see, a baby has none of that. And so this is why this is the idea that they're the closest thing to God that is a material, physical existence or one of the closest things to God? It's because it's unimpinged upon. It hasn't been tainted by belief, tainted by words. I mean, the baby, there are no words for anything. And every day it wakes up and it's like everything's a wonder to the child, to the baby, because they've never seen any of this. And this makes a beautiful approach to life, because you are completely saturated in the wonder. You're completely saturated in the beauty. You see, no obstruction, no obstruction. Okay. Any questions? Let's see. Yeah. Hi, Twilight. You can practice no mind doing any kind of repetitious activity. I fall into that when I do chores often. That's awesome, Twilight Mist. Exactly. And then it becomes a moving meditation, essentially. And out of that, inspiration. Bam! You nailed it, Twilight. Yes, you nailed it. That's it. I love it. I love it. Okay, so if you want to email me, you can email me here. Contact Chuck Jr. at yahoo.com. Yeah, there we are. There, I just posted it. Okay. Hey, Chuck, this has been great. Awesome. Would you say chats are more zen and dogs are more cats? Sorry, cats are more zen and dogs are more You know, I never thought about it, Gretchen, but that's very creative. Yes. I mean, look at the cat. I mean, look at the cat. Completely chill. And you got the dog, you know, he's all there, or she. That's a great line, Gretchen. I like that. I like that. Okay, any questions? KM, sorry, here, KM, the KM, that's one of their hubs, is the Chinese Communist Party, is one of the hubs of the KM. Yeah. Yes, this is it here. Twilight, you are, oh my God. I think that's why they say, chop wood, carry water, as a meaningful saying. The mundane task becomes part of your spiritual work. Bam! Twilight, awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay. Do you think our society or this lifetime grasp the ultimate or the root of endings and beginnings? Do you think our society, I'm not understanding here, is this lifetime grasp of the ultimate or the root of endings and beginnings? I simply see the earth as a garden, as a means for the soul to learn through the experience of the dualistic life. Our souls, I've heard many times, are in the process of growth, and we integrate into other higher and higher forms or bodies as we grow through our experiences. So the person who learns what the earth is here to teach, is here to instruct, a person who does actually learns that, graduates. Like I've said many times, nature is a meriting system. And so the whole idea is to fully spend your life here on earth completely delving and exploring everything that you can, and grow, and without resistance, build this greater and greater understanding of yourself and the world. And to fully experience these things, to learn through experience, not through words and books and professors, but to actually learn by getting your hands dirty. You do that on this planet and quote unquote fulfill what it is that your soul came here or wanted to experience here, whatever the case may be. When you do that and you finish that course, then you graduate, you leave, you go to the next step, you keep growing. And that never stops. The soul is eternal, infinite. There is no time. So its growth is constant. It never stops. The potential is endless. And so there are certain aspects of ultimate reality here on earth that you are engaged, tested by, learning about, experiencing, right? And then once you've exhausted that over many, 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 possibly hundreds of lifetimes, once you've exhausted that, you move on. You graduate. You've learned. It's like I told you guys when some of you found me, I said, eventually you're going to exhaust me, meaning I'm going to deliver what I can and what I've learned. And eventually you'll have learned it. And you're like, well, Chuck, I mean, I've heard you say this before 10 years ago. And I'm in that space. I understand completely. And I keep saying things that you've already mastered. Well, my friend, you've graduated from me. They're like, that's it. Find a new teacher, find another teacher that will continue to grow, help you grow. You know, I'm not an end all. Nothing is an end all, you know? So yeah, it's this whole idea of growth, endless growth. Okay. Did we get rid of the mean people? Okay. Do we come into this life, Goose Mama, hello. Do we come into this life with particular hangups, veils that block our true perception? We have particular tendencies, not hangups, tendencies. Do we acquire them as we, yeah, it's a tendency. So based on your environment, you will tend to go a certain direction, choose a certain way based on your personality, which is not your choice. You are born with your inclinations already inside of you, your curiosity level, your integration level, your social ability. These kind of things are already seeded inside of you. They're tendencies. Okay? That's in you when you're born. Your favorite color, your favorite food, who you will love, who you will hate, those kind of things will be determined by your tendencies. Okay? And so let's say like I'm born in an abusive family and I got a dad that's beating the crap out of me almost every day. I'm going to tend to become an abusive person because I have been impaled upon for years of time. Now, the potential of being an abusive person was there when you were born, but it was fostered, it was teased out by a ferocious father. And so you have a tendency to become that. And so it's going to be that the hang up is going to come if you can't release from that pattern that was beaten into you. Okay? So it's not that you were doomed to be an abuser. It's that you had a tendency from the DNA of your dad, and then you were in a setting where he is beating the crap out of you. Right? So you're pretty set up to fall into the hang up of beating the crap out of other people, because that's the way it's always been for you. And this is where your choice, your experience, your depth of perception is going to save you. Because if you have a wide enough perspective, you will understand that your dad was a psychopath and you don't want to model that in your life, that you will hurt others. That's that comment from psychology, hurt people. You have to be the one to stop that pattern, because it's likely your father was also beaten by other people as he grew up. Just like the alcoholic typically becomes an alcoholic because they were surrounded by alcoholics their youth or most of their life. There's a tendency there, but actually becoming the abuser, becoming the alcoholic, becoming the codependent is your choices based on the tendencies, based by the influences. Again, this is where awareness perspective is going to save you, because you have to save yourself. And you're going to save yourself a life of abusing others and drinking or whatever the case may be, sexaholism, whatever it is. You're going to save yourself from that if you can get a wide enough perspective and understand my behavior is going to destroy me. My behavior is going to destroy all my relationships. It's a wide angle that gives you that. This is why the drug addict can't see that world. They can't see that. They're looking at the world through binoculars, if not a telescope, and that's all they see. So they don't realize the outer surrounding world about them that they are directly affecting and poisoning through their behavior. You see? And so the acquirement was the drug addict's fault, because the drug addict never widened their perspective enough to see past the abuse and horror that they were enduring. This is why Kathy O'Brien is such a wonderful example of someone who can actually come from a highly satanic, abusive, completely destroyed life and still contain humanness and compassion for others. It's the hard work of Kathy O'Brien that now is enlightening and enlivening the thousands of lives, millions of lives outside of her, because she has become a shining beacon as a result of her choice to leave the satanic abuse she endured her whole life. So it can be done, but it's going to take the work and effort of the individual to get it done. Okay, let's go back to, thank you, I appreciate that. Okay, let's go back to the essay. It's 6:50, got a little over an hour, and we can finish up the slides. Okay. I just want to make sure no one has a, okay, no questions. All right, so here we go. Media assets, and we were on 19, was it? Let's see, 9, 19, 15, 18, 19. Yes, we didn't have the star, so this is it. Yeah, peripheral vision, that's where we were. Okay, so here we are. Slide 19. Okay, further in, Zen, the I Ching, and intuitive decision-making. This is all tying into the I Ching. Okay, every exponent of the I Ching knows this. So let's look at the above line. Thus, the responsibility of our decisions rests ultimately upon our ability to feel the situation upon the degree to which this peripheral vision has been developed. Then he continues, every exponent of the I Ching knows this. You see, the I Ching knows this aspect of nature. He knows that the book itself does not contain an exact science, but rather a useful tool, aka divination, which will work for him if he has a good intuition. In other words, sensitivity. Or if, as he would say, he is in the Tao, it would seem then that if the origins of Taoism are to be found in the I Ching, they are not so much in the text of the book itself as in the way in which it was used and in the assumptions underlying it. We're going to focus on that here in a minute. For experience in making decisions by intuition might well show that this peripheral aspect of the mind works best when we do not try to interfere with it. And this is why trying to be compassionate doesn't work. When we trust it to work by itself, Zidran, spontaneously, self-so, that's when it works. That's the intention without intention. Okay, so they are not so much in the text of the book itself as in the way in which it's used and in the assumptions underlying it. Next slide here. Okay, so that's untied together. So why did I star that? I've just lost my place. Sorry. This was next. Okay, so what I have the star here for is helping you guys understand how the I Ching works through this kind of dreamlike state. So let's look at this. Now, as I showed you before, these were some lines from the I Ching, and then these were the interpretations. And so what you are seeing is the I Ching is attempting to take this dreamlike state and put it into words so that you can understand the undercurrent of your life. That's the point. And it's the same thing, the same kind of idea as the tarot cards. The cards are attempting to show you the flow that is in your life through the chance, quote unquote, happening of the cards that you picked. The intention without intention. You were intending to pick cards, but you don't know which cards. That's the unintention. And so the unintention comes through when you flip the card over. This is your subconscious mind speaking to you. And it's the same thing with the yarrow sticks, with the tea leaves, with the hexagrams. They're rendering to the oracle, to the individual, this undercurrent that they're not in charge of, they're not controlling, but is guiding and becoming their life. Do you see? And the I Ching is attempting to bridge that gap of waking conscious and unconsciousness. It's an attempt to bridge that gap. That's what the yarrow sticks are. The bones, the dice, the tea leaves, the tarot. They're bridging the gap so that a person can make more appropriate decisions with a little bit of a longer range view, because the pattern of their life as they've been living it, like the tarot show, the pattern will show this is the underlying energy and why things have been going the way that they are. It would be a good idea to begin to steer your kayak in this direction. That's the tarot. That's the I Ching. That's the bones, the tea leaves. They're making suggestions. They're not telling you the future. They're telling you, based on the energy you have fostered in this moment, these are the ideas that best align to your future and to where you have come from. That's the structure and logic behind it. It's not random happenstance. There's real meat here. I'll tell you right on the front end, my experience with tarot has been that it has been not only right, but uncannily right, going back months, if not years. And then what it said would happen. The tendency of your life, Chuck, is most likely going to render this life to you. That's exactly what happened. And the last time I did it, which I think was last June, last summer, it basically predicted all that this is happening right now in my life. Remember, if you guys remember when I read it, I had the Ace of Cups. Love, Chuck, is going to pour into your life. And what has happened, guys? I get letters every week from dear people who are following this stuff, following and listening to what I'm saying. And they're saying, this has changed my life. I love you so much, Chuck, for the work, the help of what you're bringing to my world. Thank you. This is pure love. This is pure love. And the tarot last summer predicted all of it, showed it all. Incredible. And then this is what these things are attempting to render to us. Continuing on pages 14 and 15, Watts challenges Western rationalism's illusion of control in decisions, arguing that true efficacy lies in hunch, peripheral intuition, like we've been talking about, or the gut mind, the shin, like we've been talking about, cultivated through I Ching ideals. Isn't this beautiful, guys? I Ching ideals that calm the mind for spontaneous action. And this is an example of the swordsman's training. Now see this calmness of the mind, okay? It comes from fully accepting the environment, the situation that you're in. Now in swordsman training, one of the ways they teach calmness is like this. I learned this from Alan Watts. I think it's coming up in the book. One of the ways a young swordsman is taught is that when he comes to the dojo for training, typically in the old times, they would actually be turned over by the kids who would excuse me, they'd be turned over by their parents, and then the master dojo the guy in charge of all the swordsman training, would then take care of the children, the people that are going to be underneath his tutelage. Okay, so when the child first shows up, say 10, 12, just past puberty, and they want to learn to become a swordsman, they begin their training from the moment they arrive. And so the child is dropped off and they're introduced to the headmaster and all this kind of stuff, and they get all these introductions done. And then what happens later on in the day, as the child is integrating and trying to figure out what exactly is going on, that one of the headmasters will hide in an unknown, obviously, location. And then when the child, the teenager, walks into the room, the master will jump out from under the table or jump out from the ceiling or something and scream really, really loud and draw a sword. And this the child is overwhelmed, like falls backwards, is just crashing everything. They're so scared. Okay. And so this happens every day for weeks. The kid never knows where the master is going to jump out. And so eventually what the student has to learn is to be in a state of peace while at the same time being totally ready for anything to happen at any moment, but not anxious about it. Totally calm, totally chill. So that eventually they're so chill that when the master does jump out, they don't even jump in shock. They just simply draw the sword and ready themselves for battle. They're ready right in the moment. There's no prep needed. They are ready. Their day is preparation. So over time and time again of having this master jump out, eventually the shock of that wears out of the child, the teen, and they become completely integrated into the fact that at any moment something could jump out at me. I'm totally cool with that, totally fine with it, not expecting it, but fully ready. And this is the appropriate approach to life. No matter what life throws at you, whatever obstacle, no matter how painful, no matter what you face, you are always in the state of meditation. You are always in the state of readiness. But you're not trying to be ready because your life has become a meditation of peripheral vision, a meditation of wide angle focus. That's your whole life. You're living that 24/7. So no matter what happens, always calm, cool, collected. Okay. So the house is on fire. Okay, no panic. If I can stay unpanicked, I can make the best decisions considering the moment. But if I'm just reactionary, I'm not going to make the best decision. And this is something that is honed. You're not born with this. This is a characteristic, a trait of calmness, of peace that is honed and teased out of you through more and more and more actual experiences of terror, of being freaked out and learning to remain calm in that. Now imagine how efficacious a walk that is in life, to whereby you're not freaked out, high tone, like, okay, I'm ready. Anything comes out, I'm ready. But see, that person is impersonable. That person is out of touch with those closest in their surroundings because they're always looking out of the side of their eye. It's like I had a friend once whose father was a full-blown sheriff. And when he told me whenever they went to a restaurant, the dad always picked the table that was in the back corner of the restaurant, and he would always sit with his back to the corner so he could see the entire restaurant. That's how high-toned he was. So he's carrying around this anxiety of, okay, I got to make sure I know where everybody's coming from wherever I sit, or I'm not going to be calm. If you sit me at a table in the middle of the room where I'm surrounded by things that I cannot see, that builds anxiousness. You see, and this is where the person is too high-strung. They've taken it too far. They've taken their readiness too far to now it's impeding and impinging on their actual living life. That's too far. The idea is you walk into the restaurant fully ready and aware, but you realize life is risky. So we may end up at a table where it's not as comfortable as I wish it to be, but I'm going to remain calm. I don't have to have the world be exactly how I want it to be calm. That's the lesson. I integrate calmness into whatever my situation. I don't have to sit on the back wall to find peace. I don't have to do that. I can sit anywhere in the restaurant and be fully calm, chill, whatever, Trevor, it's all good. I'm ready no matter what happens. You see? And this is what Zen, this is what the swordsman's training is attempting. So no matter what door you walk in, no matter what table you're sitting at, no matter where you're talking, who you're talking to, and what situation, you are ready, but you're not showing any signs of that. Complete integration, intention without intention. Get it? That's what this is pointing towards. That's what this is about. Okay. It paralyzes over that's overanalysis. Instead, Zen, Taoism, here we go. Let me read the whole thing from here. Example of the swordsman training. This liberates from Christian reliance on prayerful discernment or biblical logic, which often paralyzes with overanalysis. Does it not? Doesn't. I mean, how many days of the week are you praying for the same thing? It's overanalysis. Instead, Zen Taoism trusts innate feel, releasing from guilt over wrong choices to embrace life's unpredictability and harshness as natural flow. You see? Releasing from guilt over wrong choices to embrace life's unpredictability and harshness. And this is the grace telling you. It's harsh. It's unpredictability. It's unpredictable. You're not always going to make the right decision, and you will learn from that. But that's the harshness. You're not always guaranteed a pleasant ride. Sometimes the ride's going to be harsh, and this is when you test your level of peace. Are you able to stay at peace in the middle of harshness? I mean, look at our current world situation right now. Are you able to stay totally chill, not caught up in the narrative, not caught up in the people they're telling you to be afraid of? Not caught up in all the stuff they're telling you is going to come and get you? 3i Atlas is going to get you. Earthquakes are going to get you. Volcanoes are going to get you. Terrorists are going to get you. It's going to get you. The world's coming after you. Everything's going to flood out. It's going to get you. Can you be in the midst of all of that turmoil and be totally at peace? Totally chill. Not disconnected, not numb, totally engaged, but fully integrated. No resistance. Become the ball. No resistance. Do you see? This is why this is so efficacious. This is why this is good for you. How to live a life in total peace and calmness without numbness, while being fully sensitized, fully engaged, 100% with the now, but no anxiousness, no matter what flood comes your way. It's the wise mind. This is what they're teaching here. This is what this Eastern way is teaching. Or biblical logic, which often paralyzes with overanalysis. Instead, Zen Taoism trusts innate feel, releasing from guilt over wrong choices to embrace life's unpredictability and harshness as a natural flow. Similarly, rocks frustrate, now follow, rocks frustrate flowing water, but they oxygenate the water. Atmosphere frustrates solar wind, but provisions life. Inappropriate behavior harms oneself and the world, but teaches the way. What perturbs creates beauty, not hell. You ever thought about that? What perturbs creates beauty, not hell. You are living in a paradise, not a purgatory. What perturbs you, what pushes in on you, where you don't like being poked, do not lose control. Meaning of yourself, of your emotions. Fully feel the poke, fully feel the grab, fully feel the fire. I mean, when I was fighting cancer, I rejected all pain medications. I wanted to fully feel everything. I want to learn. Well, in this way, then, pain becomes a teacher rather than a destroyer. It's mindset. It's turning the energy to be in such a way that you can build off of it. That's what you do when you fail. You take all the lessons you learned and build another life, another world, a new decision, a new way from the bricks of failure that you learned that cost you the hard way. Yeah? This is appropriate living. What perturbs creates beauty, not hell. Perturb, worry, upset, unsettle, disturb. This is what's going to render to you truth. Next slide. This is why it is important to see oneself as perfect opportunity, participating in a wonder like a cloud, a sunset, or mountain, not as a sinner doomed to sin in a fallen, doomed world. Sin and identifying as a sinner holds the convert to account through threat, hell, separation, relations, God, Jesus, whatever. Whereas we learn through immersion into the deed, not forgiveness from it. You see? That's why Christianity teaches that beatings will continue until morale improves. Until you submit, quote unquote, to the word of God, God is going to continue to thump your head. Get in line. Obey. Do you see? Right? And that's inappropriate. That works through hell, separate. You're going to pay if you don't obey. You're going to pay, and you're separated, pal. And your relations with God, Jesus, are all dependent upon your understanding that you're a freaking sinner. But whereas we learn through immersion into deed, not forgiveness from it. Do you follow the logic there? You don't need to be forgiven because it's your misdeeds that will cause you tremendous pain and heartache in your life that are going to teach you. They're going to teach you. Certainly approach others and make right where you have wronged them. But don't approach life with the idea, I've got to get forgiveness in order to move forward or transcend. I got to get Jesus' forgiveness. I got to believe in death on the cross, all that stuff, in order to transcend. No, that is not true. You transcend through immersion into what? The lessons, the pain, the sorrow that you have brought about. This is why you don't want or need forgiveness from it. You see? It's something to learn from. And this is a hard concept, I understand, because those of us who are raised with the whole idea of forgiveness is the key. This is a disconnect. Certainly make right with those who you have harmed, but never carry around the expectation, the entitlement. This person owes me a debt of gratitude. You see, that's an inappropriate approach. Okay. For as long as I equate myself through threats and needing forgiveness, I see the world from a space of lack and conditioning, being a sinner and the cup of coffee example. In other words, if I am filled with lack, that's what's going to spill over when I'm perturbed. And if I'm filled with anxiousness, that's what's going to spill out of me when I'm perturbed, when I'm bumped into, because that's what I'm full of. Whereas if I'm full of with equating, the middle way, acceptance, integration, immersion. When I'm bumped, I integrate the bump. Nothing spills. The only thing that's going to spill out is love and compassion. I've integrated the way. I don't have expectations. I'm not filled with anxiety. So it's hard for someone to upset me. It's hard for me to get in a bad mood because I fully integrated the way. This would be great for the people that suffer with anger issues. Seeing past that initial irk that upsets you and realizing, don't be reactive. This is part of life. This is a perturbation. Learn from it. Grow from it. You're being poked. It doesn't feel good. Learn from it. Change your situation. Stop complaining. Stop blaming. Stop expecting, asking for forgiveness. Stop that stuff, right? Take self-responsibility and realize if I'm being brought to anger by this event, then that event is controlling me. If that person is making me angry, then that person is controlling me. And you know, as long as you feel like you're under control, you're not going to be happy. How do I turn the tide? I become non-reactive. Non-reactive. I simply absorb the blow, learn from it, grow from it, and be the better for it. And love the others that taught me the lesson, because without them, I wouldn't have learned. It's a totally different approach, folks. It's a totally different approach than this idea of sin and atonement, forgiveness, wrongdoing, have to be righted by Jesus, got to be saved, you're going to hell for that stuff. It's an entirely different approach. It's a responsible, self-responsible approach. Continuing. Fields of guilt cultivate fruits of shame, which attract anxiousness and other vitality, virtuosity, eating parasites. Just talked about that. Stagnancy, sinner till you're dead, and self-depreciation, a sinner can't be trusted. By seeing that which destroys us most as an opportunity to grow rather than an opportunity to forgive, we liberate ourselves. No expectation. Nothing's broken. We liberate the mind to grow through greater awareness rather than numbing with relief through imagined forgiveness. And what do we know about imagined forgiveness? This is textbook psychological projection. Textbook. Demanding forgiveness, meaning when God demands forgiveness in order to be able to relate to him, that a psychological projection showing you that the God form you're imagining is way off center because it's demanding forgiveness. Here's the logic. Perturb means to make someone anxious or unsettled. In psychology, psychoanalysis, and psychotherapy, projection is the mental process in which an individual attributes their own internal thoughts, beliefs, emotions, experiences, and personality traits to another person or group. And what kind of God do you have in the Bible? One that's projecting onto you, you're a sinner, you're fallen, you're separate from me. There is a great distance and chasm between us, and you're a freaking sinner in a fallen world. These are projections. It's not truth. It's projections from a inferior God that's in the Bible. Because that God is jealous. That God commands love. That God commands forgiveness. This isn't a God that's at peace. This is a tyrant. It's a tyrant. It's a tyrant. Projecting. Got to have forgiveness, pal. Without forgiveness, you can't know me. This is projecting hate. This is protecting intolerance. Do you see? And then the guilt and blame and onus is put on the person because they're the sinner causing it. This is textbook abuse. This is how you build a Stockholm syndrome. The abused individual thinks the abuse they receive is deserved because they have integrated the hate projection from the aggressor. That's called Stockholm syndrome. The individual who thinks that they're a sinner and deserve to go to hell are suffering from Stockholm syndrome. They have bought the beliefs, the intentions, the way and means of this authority figure, and they have integrated those ways and means into themselves. So they see themselves in the appearance of this being as unworthy, because that has been beaten into them by the abuser. This is a syndrome. And it's abuse because the individual, not only are they getting pummeled, but they think they deserve it. This is classic psychology, psychopathy. Classic. This is how every abusive parent keeps their kids to stay in the home, because the kids have integrated the values of the abuser. And so they think the abuse, the treatment of the parent is deserved. And the Christian thinks they deserve to go to hell because they're a sinner. And so the abuse, which is you are separate from me, you must be commanded to love, and you are inherently dirty, that the convert receives from their authority, right, aligns them to the values of that authority. And what happens then? The sinner thinks they deserve to go to hell because they've aligned to the values of their abuser. That's called Stockholm syndrome. That's what it is. It's a syndrome. And every single Christian that thinks they're a sinner is completely caught in Stockholm syndrome. In the same way that the enabler doesn't know that they're buying the booze for their alcoholic spouse, they are enabling the whole syndrome to take place because they keep going out and getting the booze. And what is the Christian doing? They keep asking for forgiveness. They're taking the drug. They're in a syndrome and they don't realize it. This is how you know that the world is run by the KM and that the KM invented Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. This is how you know they invented that stuff or twisted it. Because the entire structure of the belief system is based in abuse, is based in human abuse. The whole thing. And when you see it clearly psychologically like this, you'll leave. You'll leave. You'll have all the motivation you will ever need to leave because you realize you are voluntarily taking part in an abuse situation. You yourself. Because you believe the lies, you believe the egregores. So you're like the codependent. And you're going to stay there till the day you die because you believe in the values of your aggressor. Enough said. Next slide. Watts unfolds origins of Taoism, Lao Tzu, and the I Ching. Watts unfolds thus, the basic principles of Taoism begin to unfold themselves. There is, first of all, the Tao, the indefinable concrete process of the world, the way of life. The Chinese word means originally a way or road, and sometimes to speak, which is interesting. So that the first line of the Tao Te Ching contains a pun on the two meanings. The Tao which can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. You see, this is the funniness of the world. This is how the world is hard to understand. The Tao which can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. Just like the form that can be spoken about ultimate reality is not the ultimate reality. Same picture. Same picture. Okay? This is the logic here. Quoting Lao Tzu, there is something vague before heaven and earth arose. How calm, how void. It stands alone, unchanging. It acts everywhere, untiring. It may be considered the mother of everything under heaven. I do not know its name, but I call it by the word Tao. And the Tao is something blurred and indistinct. How indistinct? How blurred, you see? How indistinct, how blurred. Yet within it are images. How blurred, how indistinct. You get it? Yet within it are things. How blurred, how confused. Do you see? Yet within it is mental power, because this power is most true. Within it, there is confidence. It is within the Tao itself. Again, there's nothing missing. This is a holistic approach to life, not a partial dualistic approach. Mental power is Qing, a word which combines the ideas of essential, subtle, psychic, or spiritual, and skillful. The important difference between the Tao and the unusual idea of God is that whereas God produces the world by making way, the Tao produces it by not making, you see, wu wei, which is approximately what we mean by growing. You see, for things made are separate parts put together like machines, or things fashioned from without inwards, like sculptures. This is why a mechanism you build doesn't repair itself, but a child you created with your spouse does heal itself. Do you see? The capacity of healing is within it. And this is a deeper sense. And this is the capacity that a machine doesn't have. This is within you. So you can begin to see the understanding, the differentiation. Whereas things grown divide themselves into parts from within outwards, because the natural universe works mainly according to the principles of growth. It would seem quite odd to the Chinese mind to ask how something was made. This is why the Chinese child asks their parent, how did I grow? Not who made me? Because the Chinese child is being brought up in the idea, in the philosophy, that there is no beginning and that there is no end to their identity. There's no start point. There's no end point. They are outside that world. They are past it. And so it never occurs to the Chinese child to figure out how they're in the world. They're going to figure out, how did I grow? Why am I growing? In this sense of always being. You see, it's a totally different approach. This is why it's so great for us here in the West who are leaving Western ideals. Last page of the lecture, and then we go to put your pipe in and smoke it. Last page. Here we go. Elucidation. Here it is. Tao is portrayed as an ineffable, vague, yet potent process of growing reality through wu wei, non-making, rather than deliberate creation. You see? Unlike Christianity, there's that intention without intention. Unlike Christianity's maker God who plans and commands, the Tao's organic emergence and alignment with the flow of nature frees from forms of anthropomorphic divinity, thus dissolving guilt from a judgmental creator and inviting trust in life's self-unfolding. This liberates the Western mind from seeking how or why in exchange, there's the key, for direct participation, getting your hands dirty. That will tell you why. Get your hands dirty. Go into it. Explore. Take the exit. Leave the farm. Then you're going to find answers. Then you're going to find answers. And to finish up here with put your pipe in and smoke it, number 2. In the West, number 1 was last week. In the West, it is not nature that fosters the sense of identity, role of life, or scope of God. It is the society's structures, egregores, and controllers that determine these life-steering characteristics. And mind you, you had no say in any of them. The society operates on a different value scale and concern than the individual. In fact, the society's concerns are its own, not the individual. And this is what I'm beginning to want to show you here. The ideals of the individual from the society are not your friend. The ideals that come out of nature, your natural growing being, this is where you want to center. You are a nature creature, center on nature, natural, authentic values. As long as you center on society's values, society's ideas, society's obligations, you are never going to integrate. You're going to be what the society wants you to be. In other words, you will be a role, not a person. You're going to be obedient, not your own thinker. You're going to be asking permission, seeking approval. Am I doing good, boss? Am I doing good? Everything okay? And expecting reproof. You see, that is not the appropriate approach to life. You didn't have say in any of this societal crap, so don't buy into it. Because the society operates on different value scales and concerns than the individual, and in fact, its concerns are not its own. Okay, meaning the individual's concerns. Societal roles and identity offerings are ultimately unsatisfying because they do not align to the individual, to the principles of nature. Again, you're a nature creature. Flow, awareness, individuation, and truth. Patterns, sacred geometry. That's what SG is. This is your flow, friend. So the more you know about awareness, the more you know about individuation, the more you know about truth and flow and sacred geometry, what happens automatically? Appropriate behavior. Appropriate behavior, because you have learned about these things and therefore you appreciate them. And what we appreciate, we nurture and foster naturally. Okay. They align the individual to the concerns of the society, lineage, hierarchy, greed, control, and obligation. A society's controllers are therefore not interested in your rapture, your consciousness, or your development. I mean, think about it. Are they interested in any of that? No. No. They're interested in keeping you sick, subservient, and prostrate. They are interested in your participation. They are interested in your submission. They are interested in your obedience while fully addicted to the egregores, illusions of separation, materialism, and assurance. I mean, what is the Westerner looking for? The sure deal. These are cons within cons to deploy an anxious society filled with perpetually shamed and prostrate believers adapted to control and wanting it, in fact, oblivious to identity and adhering to conditioned role play. Okay? Meditate on that page later, and then here's the response. By contrast, Eastern views, particularly in Zen, Taoism, and Hinduism, as interpreted by Watts, see the self as non-dual, because there's no self in Buddhism, not a fixated entity or made material, but an interdependent process, genetically manipulated or otherwise, because you grew out of nature. Even as a genetic manipulation, nature still grew you, emerging organically from the universe like waves from the ocean, buds from a stem, or growth from a root. And you guys know that. You grew out of nature. Even though we were genetically manipulated in a lab, those lab clinicians did not ultimately know what would form out from the gene pool. Nature did that. You grew out of nature, manipulated or otherwise. You grew out of nature. And this, therefore, does not determine your worth. You're a nature creature. You are worthy. You have worth because you are a nature creature. You're born with it, friend. You don't go get it. You don't ask for it. You don't align for it. You don't believe in it. You are that. And it's simply a matter of if your mind can conceptualize that. And this is nature saying, here's the opportunity. If you'd like to join into this thought and grow further, you can. If you don't, that's fine, but you will live a less full life. It's up to you. Look at here. To what do you align? This Eastern or the Western view? Control, manipulation, coming out of other controllers, or this whole idea of Zen? This whole idea of release, right? That's up to you. In Zen, this same idea of spontaneous growth emerges into what Watt coined a floodlight consciousness. Again, this is perspective and awareness of the unity of all things, which the wide angle gives you, emphasizing understanding through key acceptance, meditation, and harmony, rather than the West's conflict, conquest, and control. You see, opposite approaches. Watts viewed reality as a dynamic, living, perpetually growing holism without a cognizable source. And he highlights this as a shift from the mechanical, conditioned West with their maker to the East's Tao as an organically all-knowing, spontaneously flowing process. You see, you are in process. There is no beginning to you. There's no end. You are in process. When you were conceived in your mother, you came from somewhere into this body right here. How that happened, when it happened, what it means, all that stuff, you'll never fully divulge that stuff. But you are a spontaneous miracle. And therefore, being a part of nature, you will just completely continue to grow. And when this body dies off and gets old, you'll come out of it and you'll go into another form, another way, another thing, whatever it is, you'll grow into that. And that will be a larger existence, a larger awareness, a bigger world than this one. Just like the world that you're in now as an adult is very, very different than the world that you were in as a child. Same planet, but it's very different experience. And it's the same thing with your soul. It's having an experience of dualism here. And when it leaves dualism, it's going to go have an experience of 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, if it hasn't had them already. Okay? Very, very simple concept there. And then finally, the self is the entire cosmos expressing itself in your here and now. And like the wind which blows upon your face from seemingly nowhere, a universe which expands from seemingly nothing, or existence which sources from seemingly non-entity. Do you see? The self is the entire cosmos expressing itself in your here and now. And that is the picture of the wave that I gave you a few weeks ago. The whole ocean, meaning the whole universe, is in action. But what you see is the singular expression of a wave that hits the coastline as the water runs into the material of the land. This is like spirit running into matter, and a wave forms. And this is you. You are spirit coalescing with matter. And here you are. You have become. No beginning, no end. Here you are. And it's this larger angle perspective which will keep you from tying in and tying down to the moorings of the world that they want you to tie into, so that then you're now controlled and obedient. You see, perspective is what gets you out of that. Okay, there's the lecture. Hope you guys dug it. Let's go to comments. Hopefully we have some nice people. Thank you so much. What's up, Chuck? Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome. I'm glad to be here. Glad to be with you guys. Fantastic, Max. I love to hear it. I hope you can come to Zoom and tell us about it. Awesome. Glad you dug it. Awesome. We be silly geese. That's the comment my wife uses, silly goose. She uses it all the time, you silly goose. It's fantastic. Glad you liked it. Okay, here we go. Hi, verbal. Okay. As long as we are here on Earth at this time, do we do anything to improve outlot in the life for ourselves and others? Then at some point, we will have to fill in the blank. Okay, what I'm getting at, no. You don't improve, you experience and realize. You are perfect in and as you are. But it is your mind in an essential way that needs to be tamed, because it's your mind that's going to get you out of the natural state, because the mind has its own agenda, just like the heart has its own agenda. And so the idea is to equate the mind with the heart, so that where it spontaneously is directing you with your imagination and with coming up with ideas, it's coming out from the center. This inspiration, this spark of beginning is coming out from the heart, not from the society's demands for obedience or compliance. Do you see? So action comes out of this intention without intention, not from this obedience and subservience idea. So that all your actions are compassionate and human oriented because they're coming from the heart, no mind. Do you see? The heart, no mind. Thank you, Kalulis. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Much respect to you. Much respect to you. What do we got here? Hi, Goose Mama. It's the parable of the prodigal. There's Zen in the Bible. Yeah, but see, the prodigal, remember, he's begging forgiveness. He definitely has the experience of his world falling apart, but it's falling apart because of his irreverence. I understand he has to grow up and the lessons are all a part of life. I get that. But this prodigal idea is this idea you come back, and that's not the point of life. You leave the farm and never go back. The farm is only going to get you so far. Living with dad in dad's kingdom, like the prodigal was doing, killing the fatted calf, and all the servants are going to come into the party and everything. That's not real life. That's not real life. You grow. You leave the dysfunctional space that you left. You don't go back. You go and you change. Certainly visit, certainly say hello, but you don't go back to that old world. And that's what the prodigal son is going to do. He's going back on his knees, wanting to become a servant to the father. That is not the idea here. That is not the idea here. The idea is growing and stretching, not groveling and asking for forgiveness. You see? Little different take there. Love it, though. Absolutely love this stuff. Chuck, thank you. You're welcome, Fortune. What is the name of the Tao circle? Please remind me. It is beautiful. I am a nature being worthy. Awesome. Okay, I'll show you the name. I don't have it memorized. I'll show you. Here's media assets. I'll take you right to it, love. Right here. It's called the Enzo. It sounds like, here, comments. Let me get your comment from being on there. Sounds like Enzo Ferrari, but anyways, Enzo, the sacred symbol of Buddhism. There it is. And then Bagua, the sacred symbol of Taoism. Right? Zen Buddhism there on the right, and Taoism, Chinese Taoism there on the left. Awesome. Okay, stop. Media assets. Okay. Back to questions. I love answering questions. Here. Yes. Now, remember, Maria, I get asked a lot about prayer and meditations. Now, remember, Maria, okay, meditation is the act, proper meditation is the act of releasing everything out of your mind, meaning there's nothing in your mind. Nothing in your mind. You are in a Zen state. No mind. What are you doing during prayer? It's all mind. You're asking permission. You're seeking approval. You're accepting reproof in prayer. You're telling God your problems. You're asking God, what are the answers that I need? You're asking God to keep yourself in God's will. You're asking God to help you have strength not to sin anymore. You're pleading with God to intervene in some situation. You're asking God for something that you need. Okay? That's prayer. That's prayer. Meditation is the opposite. You're not asking anything. You're actually leaving the mind state. You're intentionally not asking anything, not wanting it, not as though getting out of the idea that there's a problem. You release, 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 release. This is why prayer, in many ways, keeps you locked into the state of anxiety, keeps you locked into materialism. You're fidgeting. Christianity is an experience of fidgeting spirituality. You fidget with it endlessly. That's why you're commanded in the Bible, pray without ceasing. Fidget with this without ceasing. There's no release. It's all capture, capture. Keeping your mind busy and overly oriented. It's a bad idea. Okay, so no, I don't think those two things are the same. I don't think prayer and meditation are the same. Okay. You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay. Here we are. Chuck. Hi, Gretchen. Always love seeing you here. Thank you for being here every week, dear. I so appreciate it. Chuck, do you still believe in angels? It's a concept that I am reimagining as I deconstruct my Christian roots. Thank you for being you. Not in the sense that the Bible says. I just subscribe to the idea that there are beings other than ourselves. And I believe that there are beings, I subscribe to the idea that there are beings in other dimensions that can morph and form into a form in this dimension and then leave that form and move to another dimension. I think that's completely normal and no big deal. We can't do it, or most people can't do it, but I believe there are forms like that. And I believe that some of those forms, off-planet forms, on-planet forms, some are kind and beneficent and wanting to help in the emergence of the human collective. And I believe some of them consider us food, consider us containers to be exploited and fed off of, to be used as fodder. I believe that those, you could call those demons, you could call them fallen angels, whatever. But I believe those are also part of the scenario. I don't think we're alone by any stretch of the imagination. I think the universe is filled with life. Chock filled with life. I really do. I really think that. I think it is beautiful. Thank you so much. They will be ready in a few weeks. I will definitely announce them. No worries. Yeah, here. Thanks, Clueless. Go to the space between the words in the chatter in your mind and increase the spaces to release. Yes. I would also suggest listening to Dr. Campbell. Dr. Campbell talks about ways of release and peace in the mind in his Mythos series, Mythos, and it is available on DVD. It used to be available on like rental subscriptions back in the day when people had DVDs. They would rent like Netflix or Blockbuster and stuff. It used to be available on that stuff, but I know a lot of that stuff is gone now. I haven't been able to find it not on the Mythos DVD set. You can get a DVD reader for about $15-20 from Amazon, and it runs into a USB. So it is possible. But I've never seen, this is what's incredible, I've never seen the full lectures on YouTube. I actually, on my other YouTube page, posted about 50 of his lectures, but the Campbell Society banned my channel, and they locked me down, and I had to delete all the Campbell lectures I had posted because they got mad that I posted them, even though they're so hard to find. Like, they are really hard to find. But that kind of thing is what you're going to find in Dr. Campbell's work, especially his Mythos series. Okay, Max, I don't know if I received an email from you. I got an email from a guy named Max that said, and I don't know if this is you, but he said, I haven't been able to make the Zoom meetings, and because I haven't been able to make the meetings, I feel bad, so take me off the list. And that's why I said at the beginning of this lecture that being on the mailing list for the Zoom meeting doesn't mean you have to attend. There's no requirement. The Zoom meeting is free, and you go if you want. You just need a link, and the only way you get a link is through me. And the reason why we've set that up is to eliminate trolls as much as we can. But you can go one time in the next 20 meetings, and it doesn't matter. There's no requirement. You could go every time in the next 20 meetings and participate in every meeting. That's great. There's no obligation, Max. So I have received emails from a gentleman named Max, and I don't know if it's you exactly, and I have replied, and I have put a guy named Max on my Zoom meeting mailing list. I just don't know if it's you. I just don't know. I hope it's you. Okay. Oh, this is interesting. Now, what do we got here? Goose Mama. Thank you. This is in regards to the prodigal question. I noticed that the father understood what the son did not. I never thought of that before. That's what makes me excited to see. Truth is finding a way. Yeah. I think personally, Goose Mama, it's my opinion that all of the Bible has been twisted to make it a control system, to cause those that subscribe to it, believe in it, and integrate it to cause them to become addicted to the religion, attached to the religion, and a fanatic for the religion. And all of these things, attachment, being a fanatic, not letting it go, these are all what pull you out of the humane space and into the anxious space. And so if you notice, I mean, even Jesus says, I am, meaning only me. I am the only way, truth, and life. No one comes to the Father but through me. That is a controlling statement. A sage would never say to you, a true sage would never say to you, I am the way. Because there's no I in a true sage. They don't see themselves as I. They see themselves as part and parcel of the stream. They would never be as conceited enough to say, only my way is the way. That's narcissism. You see, and this is what the Christian is blind to about Jesus. Those statements make Jesus a narcissist, but the Christian is blind to it in the same way the codependent is blind to the clues that they're enabling their alcoholic partner. They're blind to it. The Christian does not realize that by believing in the Bible, believing that they're a sinner, believing they need to be saved, and believing in a form of God, they don't realize those are all cages. And when you believe, you put yourself in a cage, and the Christian won't leave because they're afraid. Because they've subscribed to the idea that there's such a thing called security in a wonder. In other words, the Christian is deluded. They have no idea. And this is why we get trolls like we get on chat sometimes, these hardcore Christian people that are spouting all this hatred towards people, that are spouting all these regulations towards people, meaning you better believe this way, you better believe that way, you're going to hell. This shows you how psychotic they are, how lost they are, how caught up and anxious they are. They're rendering their mind right to you. And especially when you see the ones that are making post after post after post after post, that's a fanatic. They're insane. They're showing you right on the front end, the dysfunction from which they're suffering. That's why the awakened individual can see a person calling them trash and garbage like they were doing to me tonight and be totally unaffected. It's just like, okay, well, if that's the way you feel, that's fine, no problem. We're going to take you off the chat because that's inappropriate. You don't call people trash. You know, you don't behave like that. That just shows how angry you are as an individual and how nobody should listen to you because you're so degrading in the way that you speak. You see, it's all right in front of you. So again, this is the same idea of being blind. Yes, the story, the son coming back, groveling, that whole thing is just like, no, there's no awakening here. He's going to go back to being an obedient servant to his dad. He's not going to grow. He's going to stay indebted to his father who saved him. You see? Bad idea. That's why I don't like the story of the prodigal. Okay. Let's go ask more too. Hello, Obi. I hope this is the Obi in Ireland or Scotland. Chuck, if all is mind, is it on me for creating my world around me? Have trapped myself in a place that does not allow growth? Well, yes. You didn't create the world around you. You created the perception of the world around you. Okay. So yes, the world you have created through your own perception, but the world is truth, meaning what you may not see that truth. You may see the veils, the egregores, the anxiety, and integrate that non-truth into yourself, thinking it's the world. You see? So in that sense, yes, you've created a world of anxiousness around you. But if you release and stop trying to secure and find answers and revel in the wonder, you see, there's no trap there. Reveling in a wonder, being taken in a state of rapture, that's not a trap. That's release. So when you are able to graduate from the ideas and egregores that have been put into you, your perception will graduate out from the world that you have, quote unquote, created. Do you see? Okay. Thank you. Great stuff, Matt. Great stuff. Okay. This is good here. We're in the holiday season. Hello, Clintrons. Thank you for participating in my work, and thank you for your consistency being here, and thank you for your emails. Okay. Have you found that the Christmas period is really enjoyable when you have the ability to appreciate and the beauty and joy of the music and story without having to worship them? Of course. What is wrong with giving to others? What is wrong with celebrating the merriment of the year, the merriment of the moment, having fun in the snow? What's wrong with that? You know, sharing with others and giving to others, enjoying in the Christmas spirit, that's beautiful. So no, you don't have to subscribe to the narrative in order to enjoy Christmas. In fact, Christmas will open up to you and be even better by not subscribing. Here we are. Can you make a t-shirt with the KM thumbnail map? I can't use that map without the permission of the author. And it's been so long since I've said his name. What was his name? The author of the Cult of Baal. What was his name? Shame on me for not remembering it. Here, let me look it up so that you guys can know the name. Because I want you guys to know the name of that guy. He deserves to be recognized. Cult of Baal. Yeah. Dylan Monroe. There it is. Dylan Monroe. I actually thought about that. Excuse me. I actually thought of it before I saw it. Dylan Monroe. And so I can't put the KM, those bubbles and everything, because then I would have to pay him all kinds of fees, and I can't afford to do that. So I can't use his map. I can't use his map. Okay. But I'll come up with something creative. Don't you worry. I'll come up with something creative. Okay. It wasn't you. Okay. Thanks, Max, for sending me another email. And I will check out what you have to say, because I thought that was you. I thought that was the Max I was talking to, but it isn't, obviously. Okay. Yeah. Great insight, Gretchen. Yes. Yes. Gretchen. Fantastic. Whether talking with your mouth or talking with your mind. And the whole point of meditation is no words. Brilliant insight, Gretchen. Thank you for that. If you're on the list, you get the slides to study before. Yeah, I send the slides after the show. I don't send the slides before, but by being on the list, you're going to every week get the PDF of all the slides from the Zen, and years from now, months from now, long after I'm gone or you stop watching me or anything, you still got that treasure of all the pages of the Zen stuff that I've been working so hard on for y'all, which is going to be great. I hope you have that the rest of your life, and I hope it serves you well. That's why I wrote them. That's why I'm developing them. Absolutely. Okay. Thank you, Gretchen. Awesome. I appreciate you. What would I not trust? What to not to trust? Gonna kidnap Max's Mossad. Okay. Got it. Got it. I promise you I would have been kidnapped a long time before, I promise you, than getting into this Zen stuff. They would have kidnapped me when I was talking about all the KM for years. Yeah, exactly. Fascism. Nailed it. Catlin Kiss. Nailed it. Nailed it. Yeah, there's no security found there. Okay. Yeah, great insight, Clueless. Thank you. A guru will show you the path so you can come to your own conclusions exactly about the truth. Because remember, the truth is going to be unique for any individual. It doesn't ever change, but it's unique in how you understand it. How I understand the truth is going to be different than how you understand the truth. We're not going to probably find agreement there. We'll find similarities. But with ultimate truth, because you can't put ultimate truth in the words, I mean, that's going to be your own picture, right? That's going to be your own drawing. And so that's why anytime a guru tries to nail down your opinion or thought about spirituality, who your true identity is, whenever you have a sage, an individual, whatever, who is telling you who to love, who is telling you what you have to do to be okay, right there, you know it's not the truth. Right there. Because the truth cannot be put into words. You must use logic and common sense thinking if you're going to see through the Bible. You must use logic and common sense, practicality, pragmatism in order to understand the truth of the Bible, which is it's a control system. It is using love to twist you into control. In other words, it's loving you straight into hell. It's loving you straight into a hellacious life because you'll be caught up in materialism. You'll be caught up in definitions. You'll be caught up in words. That's a horrendous life. That is a horrendous life, and you don't want that life. Okay. Let's go further. Yeah, right on. Right on. Yeah. Yeah. That Christianity is the allegory of the cave. Think about it. You're 3 years old. Your parents are already raising you in Christianity, and that's the only spiritual world you'll ever know because your parents tell you all other spiritual disciplines are bunk compared to Christianity. Christianity is the one. It's the one. And no other can make the claims. Christianity is the only one. And right there, you can see right through it. Right there. Because the world would never fall under one definition, ever. The world would never fall under one picture of itself. In fact, that's inappropriate. It's like giving a picture of somebody that you know to someone else and never allowing them to see that person any other way but how you tell them. This is what the Bible is doing. You're not to see the world any other way but how I tell you. Well, how can you have a friendship with that other person? Because your knowledge is completely based on not your experience of the world, but always translating your experience of the world and always translating your understanding of the world through that person. Well, this is what the Bible is doing. This is how you know it's controlling you. You only see the world it tells you. You only integrate the world it says to integrate. You see, it's a control. It's a control system. And this is how you know it's inappropriate. This is how you know it's not good for you. It'll create a fanatic. It'll make you into a fanatic. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's not even heaven. Okay. Where's the quote? Chuck, I believe the following quote explains much about the description of our world. Okay, I'd love to have it. Let's see. This is David Jonah Zan. Okay, I'll look for you again. No. You're welcome. Welcome. Truth is a paradox. Yes. Oh, you just hadn't finished. Okay. Chuck, I believe the following quote explains much about the deception we experience in this world. Masonry, like all the religions, all the mysteries, Hermeticism and alchemy, conceals its secrets. Yeah. See, the reason why I did all my work on Hermeticism, alchemy, and Rosicrucianism, okay, I've done a lot of work on that. I mean, my entire nature series is on Hermeticism and alchemy. And I mean, it's a view of nature from the Hermetic alchemist point of view. Okay, that's my nature series. So all the religions, all the mysteries, Hermeticism, alchemy conceals its secrets. Yes. These are surface coatings of a deeper truth. Understand that. My series on Rosicrucianism, my series on Zen, my series on nature, I understand those are words. I understand those are descriptions, and they all my videos fall short of the truth. I am fully aware of that. But at the same time, we grow in dialogue. We grow sharing with one another. We grow with word pictures and seeing the world in a more picturesque way through the concepts of another. Okay, so there's nothing wrong, in other words, there's nothing wrong with studying religions, studying the mysteries, studying Hermeticism, studying alcohol, studying alchemy. There's nothing wrong with that. That's healthy. Because if you don't study these things, what world are you living in, right? If you don't study anything and consider everything false, well, then you're going to live in a world of emptiness because your concepts are going to be only your own. And that's a pretty empty life. Okay, so if you want to grow, if you want to integrate, if you want to see a larger perspective, my God, the first thing you're going to do is start looking at these deeper, heavier disciplines and going out into the world and experiencing it. This is what's going to render truth to you. But none of these, no religion, mystery, Hermeticism, alchemy, none, Zen, Buddhism, none of them are going to give you the final thing, the final truth, the truth, because that can't be put into words and it can't be put into a final thing. Okay? So we do this to broaden our horizon, not to arrive at a destiny. There is no destiny where we're going right now. There is none. The course, the journey is the destiny. Okay? The journey itself, life itself, that's the destiny. But it doesn't end when your life ends. It's just the path that you're on. And then when you pass away and your soul leaves, there you go. You're still in the flow. You're still in the stream. So you are correct. None of these are going to give you the answer. Yes, all of them are images. Yes, all of them fall short, but they help conceptualize. And that's what's important, because you're never going to fully grasp who you are and the world that you're in. Okay. Okay. Any other question? We are out of time. It's 8 o'clock. I'm going to look for an all caps. Long story. I did, but I left that. And it's for all the reasons I have described, my friend, for all the reasons I described. I asked Jesus in my heart many times, actually, when I was a kid, because this whole thing's on fear. So where is the all caps? And I will answer you. Yeah. Isn't it beautiful, 9mm heater? Isn't it beautiful? Isn't it beautiful, my friend? Destiny unknown. Destiny unknown. I mean, that is beautiful. We don't know where exactly we're going. Isn't that fantastic? Isn't that fantastic? Okay, well then nobody's got any caps. We're all good. Looks like we're good. Thanks, y'all, for being here. I really appreciate your taking the time. Thanks for spending your Saturday here. And yeah, for your love and connection to me all throughout the week. Thank you for your emails and the kindness that you have shown me and the grace and love that you have offered me. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm going to continue to deliver these Zen series all the way through, up through the new year, all into next year. I'm thinking about maybe if I can, I'm thinking about doing a gardening series on organic gardening and so forth way down the line, next spring, next summer. But until then, we're going to be looking at Zen. We're going to be looking at this book very slowly and methodically so that we can get as much out of it as we possibly can. Thank you so much. I love you too, Fortune. Thank you so much. What quote didn't I finish? What quote? I did finish the Lao Tzu quote. Loves and nourishes all things, but does not lord it over them. Yeah, accomplishes merits and makes no claims to them. What quote did I not finish? That's going to drive me crazy not knowing that. Okay. You're welcome. Thanks, guys. High fives to everyone. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Sorry about the few trolls we had. It's going to happen from time to time, and that's okay. That's part of life. It's okay. Yeah, I do too. I love gardening. Had to break apart the quote. Shoot. Well, we're out of time. Bring it to Zoom. How about, David, you contact me this week. Shoot me an email. I sent you the email earlier. Chuck, contact Chuck Jr. at yahoo.com. Tell me you want to be on Zoom, and please bring the quote, and I will answer you directly on Zoom. Okay? So if you want to know, you absolutely can know, or you can send me the email and I'll read it on Zoom, and you don't even have to go, and you can watch Zoom and not participate. That's fine. And I'll answer it then. No problem. You get on the email list by shooting me an email at this address, contact Chuck Jr. What is happening? What is happening? What just happened? No. Here. Contact Chuck Jr. at yahoo.com. Post. Here. And I'll star it. Here. There. Love you too, brother. I hope to see you at Zoom. Please come, David. I would love to see you, Ben. Love you too, Scooter. Thanks for being here, buddy. All good. All good. I hope you didn't get upset. All good. Peace to everyone. Absolutely. Here's my email. So in case you want to write me, if you want to be on Zoom or anything like that, please let me know. Be happy to send you an invitation. Yes. Thank you to my mods. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Ken. Thank you guys so very much. Thank you, Jerry. Absolutely. Absolutely. Right on. Okay. Love you guys. I'll see you in 1 week. We will continue on the book. I'm excited. I really love you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Okay. I really mean that. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you for your notes and for your concerns and for your questions. That's why I'm here. Okay. That's why I'm here, to just simply offer you a perspective of the world that releases you. Okay. Beautiful. Love you guys so much. This is so great reading you guys, loving each other. I really like looking at that. Yeah, I really like looking at that. Okay. See you guys next week. Bye-bye.